Is this a
Yeah,
government school or a private school, madam?
that is a government school. They want to take their children to private schools where they go so early. So the parents should style up and know what is right for their children.
Well, Rachel, what essentially would be happening in school at 6:30 in the morning? Would you be teaching? What would they
No,
want you to do at this hour?
they want children to come for morning prep.
Hmm.
Yeah, sometimes for the class 8, the teachers are there with them. So you find it. Yeah, when you don't do that, they start blaming the school and everything. They say teachers they are very lazy, they can't do their work.
This is what is said.
So they decide to take their children to the schools who carry out the same exercises very early in the morning. Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of attitudes, I think, societal attitudes and what we attribute to hard work. Most people, as I said earlier, feel that there has to be a sense of suffering, waking up very early, because if school started at, say, 9 o'clock, that can't be serious. So I can see exactly where you're coming from and why parents would think that. And I think that's what we need to change.
Yeah.
The attitudes, even the attitudes towards the children, the fact that up until now, this hasn't been brought to the fore. People are, it was okay for kids to be getting up at 3 a.m. and, it's just now that, of course, media, it's been discussed, but it's gone on for quite a while. So I think it's more our attitudes towards children's emotional well-being that needs to change. We need to understand them and maybe be more empathetic towards that. And this quest for success, which is pegged on education, which is then pegged on, hard work and waking up really early and so on. Maybe we need to revisit that, and maybe the new curriculum might bring that in, where there's other things
Yep.
being inculcated into the child other than academia and this hard work sort of grit culture that we have.
Also on the line, I've got Dan calling in from Kisumu. Good morning, Dan.
Actually, it's Ben.
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 Ben, good morning.
Yes. Yes, morning.
Morning.
I've been following the discussion. Actually, I've dropped off my nephew in a public school just a few minutes ago. And I think, for me, my 2 cents is I would put the blame squarely on the parents because, I remember City Muga said something earlier on that back in the days when people went to school, or folks went to school, the nearest school was the best policy. And it was the best policy because there was no excuse for you to go such a long distance when there was a school just next to your house.
Yep.
And then while the pupil was going through schooling, even the teachers knew their parents. They knew where their child was coming from. So if there was an issue, they could even meet informally over the weekend and actually talk to them about it. But we've gotten to a point where we want to live the fast life, and we've relegated all these things to, other people. Because we find where, we're busy with work and everything. But then again, we want to keep up with the Joneses and, even in formal meetings, you want to talk about where your child is going to school and emerge like you're doing well in that cycle. So I think the parents take the blame squarely on this one because if we went back to the way we did it, and I work in a research organization in Kisumu, most of the folks I talk to there, they all did public school. So I'm wondering where this fad with private school came from. I'm yet to see where they're working. So it tells me that public school worked then, and it could still work now, despite the high number of enrollments, which can be addressed. But for me, I just think like we're trying to live up to some societal expectation of, my kids going to this private school. So we want to look good in the face of others. That's my contribution.
Ben, thank you very much for your call this morning, and thank you for your contribution. So you think this is all about parents doing what they are doing? This is for them to fit in.
It's about keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Really yes.
Do you think that public schools would still offer this? Like, are there sufficient public schools within all localities, all neighborhoods that could actually address this problem?
There are a lot, by the way, but we skip them in a bid to run to the private schools. And I think if this is not addressed, you would have the same problem that the overflow of numbers in public schools happening in the private schools. Only this time they're paying, so nobody will chase them away. They bring in good money, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Asante sana, Ben. Have a good day in Kisumu.
Okay. You too. Thank you.
And the number to call is 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Grace, you've heard what the teacher and the parent are saying. Did you hear the same when you went on the ground?
Well, the last caller, Ben, most of the people actually shared the same sentiments, putting the blame on the parent. To some extent, it's a bit unfair, but then I think the blame is on them because of the person that is dealing with the children directly. Even if there are policies out there, even if there are government, organizations that are tasked to look at the rights of the children and all that, the person who's staying with the child is the parent. I'm not entirely putting the blame on them, but they have a role to play, and it's huge actually. But then again, you would understand them, because if I could fall back to Kemunto again in my story, Dawnbreakers, the situation that she lives in does not allow her to, have her children out at 7 a.m. The economy, if you put the blame on the economy, the poverty levels and all that, that's why her children are out. The first caller mentioned a little bit on the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, and I think this new education system should help in sort of like improving the levels, because what children ought to achieve, or what the CBC looks at achieving, is communication and collaboration in the children, critical thinking, imagination and creativity, learning, to learn self-efficacy. So if we put a child at a position where they can be able to express themselves, to say, this is what I feel about this is right, this is wrong, then probably we would help in, improving this situation.
Reminds me of the conversation we're having about voting and weighted voting and whether children should be allowed to vote, because here you can see conflicting interests between the parent and the child, where the parent is taking the child to the school for whatever reason. It might be because it's a better school, or, as the caller says, keeping up with the Joneses for the sake of sort of looking good for taking a child to a private school. But at what cost, at what expense to the child's emotional well-being and just life in general, having to wake up at 3 a.m. for a child? So maybe food for thought, because of course if the children are voting, then the local authorities or whoever is responsible for good schools in that community would then be tasked or be accountable to the children, and maybe we might see a change here. Food for thought.
It is food for thought, but remember, you're talking about a system that is argued by those who in government and those who are in politics, that is actually at the very, very foundation of any nation, the education of your people, okay? And there is evidently a clear gap. It's not that the needs are not understood. It's not that they're not even known. So who is it that is supposed to guarantee that the things we know ought to happen, and we could list them, who is supposed to guarantee that they happen?
You know what's interesting, CT? You lean towards blaming the structures, so government, the education system, and so on. I want to blame our attitudes, because our attitudes will also put pressure on government. And if our attitudes towards children change, i.e., we start to prioritize their emotional well-being, that will put pressure on the government and the authorities in charge to ensure that the structures are in place, that there's enough state schools around and they're employing enough teachers and so on. But if our attitudes towards the children don't reflect the importance of this, then even the people responsible for the schools and so on, they don't have that pressure when it comes to electioneering. They're not going to be selling those agendas and so on anyway. Do you see what I mean? It's our attitudes that have allowed this to happen. It was okay for children to go through suffering.
Not entirely, Jerry. It's not that they want children to suffer.
No, it's okay. I'm not saying anybody wants children to suffer, but it doesn't strike a moral chord within us. Not strong enough for us to make changes. I mean, we've been seeing this going on for years now, and we're okay with it.
In a sense, you're right when you're calling it a societal attitude. Last week we were talking about a value system, but if you understand Kenyans and how they function, Kenyans will avoid, they tend to avoid, not confront issues. And when an education system doesn't work, they don't confront it. They look for an alternative.
They seek alternatives.
They look for an alternative. And they answer that question that you're raising by looking for that alternative. And they figure, where would my child's interest be better served? and they look for the alternative. They don't confront this particular system.
At the same time, I don't think they're actually looking towards. We're not still at the point looking towards outcomes. We're looking for solutions for a particular problem, but we're not also looking at the outcome of what happens to this child going through a system where 1, 2, 3 actually doesn't work. Because if we want to be honest, the way in which things are going now, it does not work. We can't have a child waking up at 3:30 in the morning, being on the road at 5 o'clock, attending classes all day, coming home at 6 o'clock, and then working until 10 p.m. and then going to bed, and then starting the vicious cycle all over again. So these particular outcomes, they just do not work. But that's not where we're looking. We're looking for a solution for the problem now. We're not looking at, 10 years to come, how is my child going to have fared through this education system?
We're fixing Band-Aids.
Exactly. We're using a bandage to fix it, Band-Aid to fix a hemorrhage. And that's not the solution. But we're not looking at the outcomes on a whole.
Richard in Kilifi, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Yes,
Morning.
how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
We are all very fine.
Yes. This is my opinion on this issue of young kids being woken up very early to be on the roads for so long before even the classes start. My focus, or my finger points at the government, the whole issue is about policy. Let the government provide the legislation and enough policies to guide us on what should be done. It's unfair, for instance, to find a parent who avoids taking his kid to a school in Kitengela only to take that kid to a school in the CBD. So let the parents be banned from taking, or let the parents be forced to take kids to the nearest school within their locality. And number two, parents also should avoid this social class hype. That you see, yes, I come from this social class and I'm making it in life, so my kid has to go to such a blah, blah, blah school. So if we reduce the hype, or we avoid the hype that goes with the social class and that we are making it in life, then we will allow our kids to go to any school around, so long as they get education. But also, the quality of public primary schools, especially public primary schools, is also questioned. The government needs to ensure there is proper management of this basic education. Public.
We've lost Richard. We've lost him, unfortunately. Richard, if you're able to call back, you'll call back and we'll be able to put you on air.
Education, Eric, is a partnership. Okay? Jerry mentioned that I was trying to lay blame on the government. No. I was merely stating the obvious. This is a responsibility they have, not blame. This is what they are supposed to do as a government. Okay?
It's their job.
Yes, but why it's a partnership is this. In the absence of parents taking their children to school, there are no children in schools.
Yeah.
In the absence of there being teachers, there is no learning that takes place. It's a partnership. Now, this partnership broke down somewhere from what was known, where the government was fully in charge. The government is no longer fully in charge of the education system in this country. So the reality of the education is this. Private schools, the very thing that we're saying, parents who take their children to private schools focus on this because you tend to pay a little more for the private schools. So parents demand. They demand certain things.
Yes.
They push for certain things. In the education system that's run by the government, they don't bother because they know very well you can shout as much as you like. You can turn from grey to purple. Nothing will change. So, again, Kenyans being Kenyans, it's called avoidance. They look at that situation and they look for an alternative.
This is not working for me. Let me look for
an alternative.
Yeah,
Yes.
and like I said, we're not even looking at again, if we're going to look at this child as a whole, complete, the outcome is not in focus. And it's at that point an alternative for now. What will I do now so that this child can go to school because it's their right to go to school and they need to have an education while I go off and do my work.
A good education, not just an education.
Yes, exactly, a good education. And now with the options that I have, this is the one that I'm going to pick. These other factors will, come along later, the transport, etc., etc. But right now, what I need is for the child to have a good education while I am also at work. And because the options that they are being given don't fit into that box, then the alternative I will pick, be it far away from me, is what I am going to select.
Eric, not very long ago, a couple of years ago, when the 844 system was being operationalized, in the time of this current government, not this 5-year cycle, the previous one, the British government gave us a massive funding which was supposed to help put in place this so-called free education system. Okay? What was said and what was planned for was absolutely clear. Again, the implementation stage had an issue. And there were issues in the press, there were issues. But what was supposed to be done wasn't done. So it isn't that it is not known, it is known. It isn't that we lack for money to do it, we get it. But it goes the way of other monies in this country. Hence, that statement I keep making. These people should be looked at as criminals and murderers. Because
Which people?
that's what, the people who manage our funds and misappropriate it.
I see.
Because
In
this,
government.
yes, because this individuals within government, to be precise, because this particular discussion would have been quite different, quite different.
If people are doing their jobs.
Yes. Why do you think we always have issues about parents being blamed for paying teachers to teach their children after class? Because the children aren't learning. There are 70 kids in a class. The government comes to the directive, they criminalize that teaching. You think it actually stops it?
It still
doesn't, right?
continues. No, it still continues.
So when Grace spoke to the Limuru sub-county head of education, right? And this is what he said.
Issue is a parent issue. We do not, as an education office, dictate the time a child leaves school. We only say the time of arrival is 7:15. So if a child is coming from very far, it is the parent's duty to see that the child is.
So what exactly was he saying here, Grace?
He's pretty much saying what I've been telling you, Eric. And you know, the caller we had, Richard, right?
Yes, from Kilifi.
He talked about policy, and the policy is there. And if I could actually just quote, word by word what the letter by Amina Mohammed said, because she said a lot of learners are picked by school buses in the wee hours of the morning as early as 4:30 a.m. What does this say? It shows they know this problem exists. It's there. And that's why they went ahead to say that, classes start at 8 a.m. And at the end of it, it says that no day institutions of basic education and training shall require learners to report earlier than 7:15 a.m. That is what is in the policy. But is it what is happening on the ground? No. And, this is what the James Murage, the sub-county director, Limuru, is using to not, I don't want to say defend himself.
Okay, go ahead.
Defend himself is the word. Because, wanajitoa, wanasema the policy says 7:15. But
if they bring earlier, what can we do?
Exactly. What do we do? He's saying we can't stop them. He's saying when they come, we can't tell them to go back home. So he's putting the blame on the children. But there is a problem.
Should the government stop them? Should the government stop? Actually,
How?
Richard was saying.
Exactly?
Richard was saying, ensure that people are not taking their children beyond certain radius.
How are you going to do that?
Look, how do you police what people do with their children?
If a child comes to school before 7:15,
Tell them to go back home? What?
Yeah, have a meeting with the parent and tell the parent, I do not want to see this child here before this time.
If the child went to a neighbor's house instead of the school, you call the parents to ask why the child isn't in school. What is difficult about ensuring there's a system in school that ensures when the children come in, there's a class they can go to, because there are schools who do that. They understand the children come in early. Yes, so classes are opened. There are even teachers on duty who ensure that the children go to class.
Yes,
what is so difficult?
But that's not what happens.
That would be encouraging.
That's
That
not
would
what
be
happens.
encouraging the early rise.
Yes.
Then as well. You don't
That's
have to create an
perpetuating the
environment
problem.
I'm trying to explain something fairly simple here, that even if you have a teacher waiting for students when they come in that early or you don't, the children will still come in early and they'll be waiting outside the gate as you're suggesting. And I'm raising the question, is it better to have the students within the school or for them to wait until the school gates are open at 7? Which
It's
is
better not to have the children leaving home early.
Or why not, to that directive from Amina, since it seems the Ministry of Education actually has a say and can change things without too much hard work. Why not just make school start at 9:30? I know it sounds intuitively absurd considering how our mindset is when it comes to schooling. It must start early. Why not start at 9:30? That would also help the Ministry of Transport with traffic and so on.
And later?
It already ends late.
It
So it's not as though you're doing
4:30 is fine.
It ends at 4:30. Now, if you start at 9:30, you're actually starting 2 hours. You're cutting off 2 hours.
Are we looking at 8 hours when there is a continuous concerted teaching
Is it
and learning?
and is it productive? Are
Is it
those
happening
8
through
hours
those 8
productive?
hours?
Because what you would rather do 6 hours of highly productive learning where children can absorb what they're being told because they've slept enough, rather than an 8-hour stretch where it's not
They're
productive.
dosing it
it's
2 hours anyway.
So it's why are we sort of limited? Nothing is set in stone. Why don't we change it to 9:30? That's a possibility.
You're asking our government officials to do something
To think outside the box?
No, to be creative. That appears to be difficult. They seem to think their job is to simply follow certain rules irrespective. And when asked to repeat the same policies that you've been taught. But do you hear of any suggestion and saying, look, why don't we think about this and do it differently? We are not sort of like knocking our heads against a stone here. We are simply saying that has been something that has been said before. The education system, even this 844 that we are now seeking to demonize, it's the same 844 system that has produced world beaters, people who compete with others on this very, very planet and excel at this same system. So, is it the system, or was it the implementation of it in certain government schools? Because there are many government schools that also seem to just continue doing well. What is it?
I think we can beat this thing down to a pulp, but I think we also need to realize at the same time that we've talked about this being the same issue. We've had this come up before. The discussions have been had. It's gone all the way to the highest levels. It's been discussed. However, we're looking for change, and the world is replete with examples of the fact that once you want something to change, we're going to have to do things differently. I think they say one of the definitions of insanity is when you do the same thing over and over and over again, and somehow expect different results. It's not going to happen. So if we want change, we are going to have to do something radical in the processes that we operate within now. And yes, we're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to be different. We're going to have to do something differently if we want different results. If we want the outcome to be children who are well taken care of, if their behavior is taken into consideration, if their outcomes are taken into consideration, if making sure that, yes, they get the quality they get within close proximity of where they live, for example, we're going to have to do things differently. And that is from the level of government, that's from the level of the basic social unit, the family, that's from the level of the parents of making these decisions. It's taking into consideration the child. If we want different outcomes, we're going to have to do things differently. Unapologetically, that is the stand that we're going to have to take.
Grace, you spoke to some experts.
I was actually about to chip in on that because that is part of what one of the education experts was saying. He was talking about rethinking and redesigning sort of like a public-private partnership where, if you take, for instance, a church, most of the times church is used on Sunday, apart, from the evening services and all. The church is free. It's open Monday to Saturday. So if we have a problem of proximity, to schools, why not use that a temporary solution? Why not use that church that is next door to offer education? I think that would, help in being part of the solution, albeit temporary one.
Is that when a state school is far from where the child lives?
Yes. Yes. Because again, if you talk about...
It's about infrastructure and facilities. So if you don't have if the government has not been able to put up facilities, what's the stopgap measure for now? Like ensure that you have an increase in the number of public schools in various areas and convert churches into classrooms.
And are we categorical about the fact that these private schools are better than the state schools? Is that
no? We are not.
No. I think there are examples also of some public schools which you actually have cases
doing very well.
where doing very well. We have cases of parents who live in Syokimau, for example, Kitengela, but insist on taking their kids to schools within the CBD because of the reputation of that school, and it's a public school.
Yes, quality
of a public school. Yes.
Okay, well, the government can definitely control that commute for the child if it's from Kitengela to CBD, because if it's a state school, they should be able to choose who they bring in, and there should be an element of recognizing your postcode, where you're coming from. You have that everywhere. You have that in the UK, where you can't take your school to the next county school.
It's true, but then also for school, for the school, for example, it's
you can't take your child
to
the next borough.
The next borough in the UK.
Yeah,
but in this case, you look at the public school, for example, saying that it's an accolade for them. We have people from across counties bringing their children to our establishment. So you
We're
see
getting the
where
best of the
we are getting
best.
the best of the best from around the country. Do you see? For them, it's an accolade.
Yes,
As a state school.
You
As a
could
state
control
school,
that and
absolutely.
say, well, this ideally that's how it should be. This local school should serve the local people, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But then, if the local school in a certain area is not actually good, or is not what their parents consider as a good, offering good quality.
No,
what do you
I've
do?
understood that. But what you're saying is that there's schools that will take in people from 10
other areas.
kilometers away, and they're
Yes.
state schools.
Oh, absolutely.
Which they shouldn't do. I mean, we start going some way in ensuring that kids are not traveling. If you discourage that, if at least government discourages it, then we can sort of look at how we can
Okay,
implement policy.
That's not even a partial solution. It actually won't solve anything. The reason why it won't solve anything is, instead of bringing that particular perspective, why not just make other schools like this one?
Exactly. Why not replicate?
What is it that
Yes.
makes these schools
And I
that
keep
good?
saying-
Why don't you look for
Yes, I keep saying that's one
What's the
major
working
factor of
formula?
development.
Yes,
One-
enforce that working formula so that
Yeah.
the others. So what you police is whether that formula that is used is actually and that
Is
the
the
government
same.
can do.
And I think I can go ahead and talk about, for example, just with an example. If you look at, I believe it's a Nairobi County school. It's just right smack in the CBD, and it has
What school
Moy
is this?
Avenue.
in Moy Avenue,
Moy Avenue Primary.
school.
Yeah.
Just as an
It's
example,
on Moy Avenue.
Yes.
There's
Yes,
a
it
school
is.
in town.
Yes.
It is renowned in terms of its quality and what
Called
it's able
Moy
to
Avenue
offer.
School.
Moy Avenue.
Yes,
Moy
because
Avenue
it's a
I've
Primary
never
school.
seen
School.
it.
It's a government school. So now you have an example. I mean, if you say this school, I mean, CT is spot on. If you say this school, is doing 1, 2, 3. And this is one of the key factors that we look at development. Look at one area that has actually worked, or look at one establishment, one institution that has worked. Use this model that they use. What is it? Do they get the best teachers?
Yeah.
Why not? Why can we not create, or why can we not develop better teachers? And then take that model and replicate it in different areas, because that we have the capacity to do. And it's not asking you to make a huge shift in your creativity. It's not asking you to make a great shift in thinking. It's just saying, okay, take a step to the left or to the right in a little way and see what can we do.
Amen here
Because
and
we
there.
have schools on the other side of the river, as it were. Just take the model and replicate. That's what we're saying.
Amend here and there.
Amend here
Do
and
you know
there.
what's
The Situation
interesting?
Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. This morning we're discussing children going to school too early, according to what many of us consider. I mean, it's leaving home at 4:30 at 5, going to school for a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, even a 10-year-old is basically too early. And what are the causes for this? What are the reasons that this is happening? We have in the studio this morning with us is Grace Kuria, who is a journalist with KTN News, and she did a story last night called Dawnbreakers on KTN News. It's what we're discussing this morning. What exactly happened? What is causing this to happen? What are the solutions? We'd love to know what you think. 0719 012 600, 0719 600, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's now 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Also, when you come out of this break, we'll start talking about children who are going to school and they do not have some basic amenities like sanitary towels.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, Limuru Road at Red Hill Junction, lots of jam this morning. Traffic alert, jam starts at the Roy Sambu overpass, and that is on the Thika Superhighway, Kazi Tunafika Kesho, apparently. Okay, exactly, that is an issue, and everybody's asking what exactly the problem could be. 6:15 this morning along Wayaki Way to the Nyari bypass on the outbound from Wayaki Way. Matatu has rolled, so I'm sorry. But in addition to the construction that's going on there, we now have had an accident and nothing is moving. Police are on the scene and trying to get things out of the way so that we can get everybody else moving. Mombasa Road from Simba Cement grinding towards Athi River is not a problem, but heading out towards town, we do have an issue. Do the cops on Bunyala roundabout think about motorists on Uhuru Highway, Nyayo Stadium, and others who are heading towards the CBD? Do we think we have no work to do? Apparently, people are complaining because they are stuck and not moving. It seems that the police are the ones causing traffic at the Cabanas, causing traffic heading towards JKIA, stopping matatus and arresting conductors. There's an operation going on this morning, so it's slowing everything down. We hope you get where you're going in good time. Give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's see how we can get you moving faster this Monday morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And it's 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 Malindi. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, and the conversation is also on Twitter at Spice FM KE. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, Seti Muga, I'm Eric Latif, and we're joined by KTN journalist Grace Kuria, who has been covering stories on education and children in schools. And now, let's talk about the children who are going to school and they're not getting some things that they really need.
All right, we're looking at the issue clearly about sanitary towels or, sanitary pads this morning. And we have girls who are unable to attend school, and we're not talking about can attend school in part. We're not saying that when that time of the month rolls around that you do not have this basic amenity. And we say basic because if you look at parts of the country where you're able to afford it, we're looking at least 100 shillings a pack, and maybe you need 2 packs at that time of the month, and you are not able, because we're looking at 80 shillings at least to be able to get that pack. And we're also looking at about 5 million girls countrywide who are not able to access this basic amenity. So they're out of school every month, missing 5 days of school. That's a big deal when you count the numbers then of days across the 3 terms where they should be in school. Now, most recently, we had a girl who was shamed for interestingly enough, her female teacher for being dirty, and she went home and killed herself. And we'd like to hear a little bit more about that before we get into the nitty-gritty of this story.
Her periodic menses has been laid to rest during an emotional send-off. Jacqueline Chepngemo was laid to rest at her father's home in Kiptawit village in Bomet County. Among those who attended the burial ceremony was local MP Japheth Mutai. Addressing mourners, the MP urged the government to provide free sanitary towels to all students to avoid the issue negatively affecting their education.
So yes, this young girl actually was shamed by her teacher, and maybe just to get a little bit more insight about exactly what happened in this particular case before we go on to looking at it at a macro level. Grace, you're here with us this morning, and that's a story that you also were able to cover. What exactly happened in this situation, this particular situation?
Well, as you said, it's actually a shame that, this came from a female teacher, because this is a person who, as a people, I've been in school, I've been in class, we look up to them as role models. So if I'm in class and this happens to me, it's usually a not so good moment, being the first time you pretty much don't know what's happening to you. It's embarrassing, because what I pick is that this child was in class, and she was tasked with a question, and which required her to stand up and respond to it. And when she stood, she had soiled herself. And so instead of this teacher, who again is a female teacher, not even male, she is female, she understands, she's been there, she should have, I don't know, if there's a lesson, helped her with it, took her out of the classroom, told her this is what you do, bought, the sanitary towels for her if they were supposed to be there. We'll talk about that later, because there was that program of distributing the free sanitary towels to school. But if they're not there, we always have a piece in our handbags, or just get it for the students. So this is a female teacher who was supposed to step up and be the parent, in this case for the child, but she did not do that. So this child went home and, had a talk with the mother, I believe, and the grandma should be, and told them what happened in class. And then she went down to the river, and minutes later, she's found dangling on a tree, and it's unfair, it's sad. In the 21st century, this should not be happening.
It's just tragic, actually. I think there's three things we can look at here. First of all, the fact that there's still a stigma attached to menstruation at this day and age. That's something that needs to be destigmatized. Secondly, the fact that we don't take into, again, our societal attitudes don't take into account children's emotions and emotional well-being. I think this is a case of that. Yet again, I don't know, children, anything can be done to them, so long as, I think we've moved away from the physical. In state schools, you're not allowed to beat. Corporal punishment was banned, wasn't it? Banned. Yes, well, emotional abuse is just as damaging,
if not worse.
Absolutely. So again, this lack of emphasis on the emotional welfare of children also stands out there for me. So I think those are the issues that need to be addressed here.
Okay. Let's jump over into legislation and see what's actually being done about this. Before I go there, here we're looking at a case where we say, okay, it's girls missing school. Okay, and that's not a big deal. All right, 5 days in a month.
It is a big deal.
Just hold on. No. I was actually being sarcastic. Okay, so here we have a situation where they say, okay, they're missing 5 days, but it's more than that. It's more than the missing the subject of the day. It's more than missing the teaching and the learning and the social aspects of being in school. And here we are where it's a situation where it's linked to shame. It's linked to shame. I am not able to attend school because I do not have what I need during this period of menstruation. I don't have it because I cannot afford it. So the government has actually instituted a program where they were going to provide for 4.2 million girls affected. Now, when we say affected, because they were not able to afford what they needed for this period of time. Now, in 2019, no distribution has been done. Since January, not one pad has been made available for control of a budget where 400 million shillings was to have been provided. 460 million actually.
So 400 million shillings was provided in the just concluded financial year.
460 million shillings actually was provided last year for 3.7 million girls. And of this money, it only provided for 4 packs of pads. That's basically 4 months that was required. The other 8 months, girls were left to their own devices. And actually, literally, their own devices. And we can talk about the horror stories of what girls have had to do to control the situation. Because they don't have pads, they've had to come up with, makeshift mechanisms to be able to control this, and they were not able to. So I dare say that at the instance where the government actually does come up with a program that is supposed to help with this, and in any part where it has not been fulfilled, then there's been a massive failure in that part. And we cannot continue to be talking about things like this in this day and age? In 2019, we are saying that we have had a program that has been instituted to have this curbed, curtailed, controlled, and it has not been done. Then there's massive failure. Don't commit to something that we say we're not going to be able to do.
Yeah, it sounds like the government is actually just engaged in tokenism here. It says, well, yeah, this matter has been raised by several people, several female legislators. I know Mama Ida Odinga was also in the front line pushing to make sure that the government actually does provide for this. And then, so you set aside a budget and say, this is how much we can do, we can afford for now. We can, tutangalia mambo yenu. It sounds like that's what it was. We'll put something together and see how we can help.
Public Service and Gender Affairs Secretary Safina Sungu actually laid this case before Parliament. And she was actually ridiculed, laughed at. And it's kind of like, exactly. And that was the sentiment, Eric. Okay, we'll see what we can do, basically. But we're looking at an issue that affects almost 5 million girls around the country who do not have and cannot attend school. So what are we talking about here? We're looking not just at a physiological factor that a girl has to go through, but then we're also looking at how this is going to affect her psychologically. Oh, you didn't come. And we need to be very honest about what happens with children at school going age when it comes to things like bullying and teasing and shaming at that age.
Like adolescence.
Yeah, when you're not able to attend school and they know the reason why. Let's not be fooled that we don't know the reason why they're not, and other children do know the reason why they're not able to attend. How does this affect children? What is the outcome that I kind of mentioned before? Even when we're talking about this, what is the outcome in the development of that child?
How should we ensure this actually works, CT? I mean, we're talking about, so the government could say that, we are willing to provide this. We are setting aside money. We are seeing that we have a couple of issues here and there because, of course, they'll talk about the logistical challenges from procurement to delivery, from all those things. And then you're talking about who's supplying, the supplying side of things. Who are they contracting to deliver or to supply them? How can we seek a solution to this and make sure that this actually does work? Because it should be as simple as...
You're asking me what I think we should... That is beyond arresting them, charging them with murder and hanging them. Beyond that.
Beyond that.
Okay, no, beyond that...
Now, once you've hanged those ones that have been hanged, next.
We talked about schools that actually function early on, isn't it? By the same token, there are ministries that actually function. We're rolling back time a little bit. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about political will. Policymakers come up with beautiful policies. The government knows what it should do. People are told. Now, as always, implementation stage. How can you possibly tell us you do not know what to do when the budgetary availability for that money is there? Sanitary pads are produced in this country. So people who can provide them, we know.
We know them.
Yes. If we can provide textbooks way ahead of even a system like this, starting. Provide, the schools have the books, okay? What is so difficult about providing sanitary pads using the same mechanism of provision? What is so difficult? So the issue here is what needs to be done. You need to find out who the bottleneck was. Who? Not what. Who? Because there's someone within that system who ensured that certain things did not work as they should. Who? Now that who should be taken to task. That who. Not what, not which, who.
There actually needs to be, a call for action because this is not happening just now. In my research, I discovered it actually hit a snag from back in 2011. It's not like it's happening in 2019. So it has been there. And then there's the whole issue of this program being moved, from the Ministry of Education to now the Ministry of Gender
and Social Services, right?
Exactly. And when this happened, one would think that perhaps things would have gotten better. But that's not what's happening.
The Ministry of Gender and Social Services.
Public Service
Gender
and
Public Service. Yeah. Under Professor Margaret Kobia.
Yeah. Right. That ministry, does it have the national infrastructure like the Education Ministry does?
It doesn't have. It is part of the government. Government is a partnership.
Is one.
Yes. When I say government, I may sound facetious, but really it is government.
But I'm wondering, why move it from that Ministry of Education to the Ministry of Gender? Is
because
that's the question.
My brother, if we
because it's a gender issue. This is for girls and women. Let's lump it all up together.
No. How is that discussion going to
help us?
Because
it transcends the fact that they're just missing schools. So it's not. It doesn't fall just under education. It's a gender issue.
Yeah, but how does that help us?
Missing school is one of the symptoms of the
You're providing it to them in school, right?
Yes.
So I
no. School can just be the vehicle through which you provide it in. It's not part of education. Although I think there was an amendment that was part of an Education Act, Basic Education Amendment Act, where which Uhuru signed into law, I think maybe even 2-3 years ago now, where they're supposed to provide these pads, the sanitary towels.
Yes.
But I think the issue was moved to another ministry because it goes beyond the fact that they're missing out, the 5 odd days, not to trivialize it, the 5 days at school.
Yeah.
It goes beyond that. It's stigmatized socially. So there's other issues within which the Ministry of Gender can deal with.
So what you're saying, therefore, if you follow your logic, is that in the provision of books, we should move the production of books to the Ministry of Industry, the Ministry of Industry will publish books.
The end user is what matters. The end user in books. Come on, now you're being facetious.
No, I'm not being facetious. I'm saying
the end user here we're targeting.
The Ministry of Education is capable of doing this thing. What is difficult?
But it goes. The issues surrounding menstruation and women goes beyond education and them attending school. It does. The fact that they miss school is one of the problems. You have problems socially as well.
School deals with all these things. Look.
Let me tell you, if they were buying these sanitary towels, if they were not going for free, we would not have this issue. If somebody was buying them, if the schools were buying them from whatever providers it is that they were being provided, we would not have this issue.
If it was a business.
Yes. If there was a way to commercialize this thing.
But it's still a business.
We would not have this. These girls are receiving them free. And then they say, okay, yeah, the government is buying. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, the books that are being provided, that CT is talking about, those who are being mandated to, are parents not buying these books?
No, they're provided. They're provided by the government.
By the government.
Yes.
But the government pays for them.
This is what I'm saying.
It's not any different. The point I'm trying to make it, why does the government set aside money to buy? Where to source them? Known.
So what we're looking at now is that because it has not taken precedence as an important enough issue, that is why we are not having.
It is not that, my dear.
So why?
When I say who, I'm getting to the heart of the matter. The same procurement problems that bedevils other government ministries. Someone somewhere, some people somewhere couldn't figure out a way to agree on who makes what money from this. Because the money was there.
Yeah.
So what's so difficult about buying it? The money was there. All government agencies that deal with ensuring this thing is legit. It had been done. Due diligence done, completed. Buying. Who? That's now the question. Not what, not which ministry, who. And even if you took this thing to the Ministry of Tourism, it still wouldn't function. It doesn't matter which ministry you take it to. It boils down to the same problem of there's money to be had here. How best do we do it? And there seems to be a complication. Remember, the media reported the ministry, the PS, they call PS? Yes. Principal Secretary. The Principal Secretary was taken to task on this matter. And there were allegations that there were companies that he was associated with who had been given tenders to provide these things. It was in the papers. Yes. Now, I'm simply saying that my understanding of government procurement systems, especially where a budget exists, when there's a bottleneck, it isn't that people don't know what to do. Somehow there seems to be disagreement as to how to divide the spoils. That's the bottleneck.
It's the division of the spoils.
Yes, and if there's a disagreement, there'll be a stalemate.
And I think even moving it from one ministry to another is playing around ping pong. Because the issue is it's fairly simple. There's money to provide sanitary towels to students in schools. Students in schools.
By the thing, distributed
to schools. Now, if you want to add other programs on, how to support them psychosocially, it's fine. You can do it through the school system because that's where they are. That's where you're finding them anyway. Grace?
It's that simple. It's actually that simple. Some of the teachers that our correspondents spoke to, they said that until a holistic plan is put in place, then this issue will continue existing for as long as, I don't know until when, because the money is there. We started by saying, in the 2017-2018 budgetary allocation, 470 million?
No, actually, 460 million shillings provided. It catered for 3.7 million girls.
So the money is there. It's just basically what, all of you are saying. The money is there. The question is, why is this product not getting to the children? And, we've come to a point of where certain people, individuals, are taking it upon themselves. We've seen programs like Inua Dada.
Yep.
Recently, we've seen King Kaka. And allow me to talk about the society too, because recently somebody actually told him, "Uko na umama." And that really hurt me because you're saying because he's a man, he should not, care about this. But it's sad that we've come to a level where the organizations, the people tasked to do this, the government specifically, is neglecting their responsibilities, their duties, and our people are taking it upon themselves to, do what should have been done a long time ago.
Individuals within government who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring these things are done
Yep.
are not doing it.
They're failing.
So these individuals should be called out because it is individuals. Now, I'm not blaming the government wholesale.
So who do you think it should be? Which minister?
Take your pick.
Which CS? Which PS?
Take your pick.
If
We,
we look-
we
Start from
know where the thing is nested.
In education, from the beginning.
Yes,
to the
take your
end.
pick. If the thing is in gender, take your pick.
If it's in finance for them who have not reduced
Take your pick.
choose and go. Because
Whoever it is.
let's even look at specifics of this financial year. Not one penny, not one pad has been purchased. This financial
And the money is there.
and the money is
And
there.
the money is there.
So what are these girls supposed to do? 1, 2, the budget that was allocated. What have you done with the money?
I
The
think
money
I was-
has been allocated. Where is it?
It's what
What
Jerry was
has not
saying.
been
How we
done?
treat our children.
Or even how we regard them.
Yeah, how we regard our children. So because in your toto, they can wait.
And even what has been provided
According
is not
to
even enough for
CT,
the whole
it's
year.
because they haven't figured out how they're going to eat this money, so it's a stalemate. Maybe they've eaten it already, CT.
You know, the
The money is gone.
A couple of years ago, the Auditor General made a very, his reports tend to be damning. Even today, there's 1 billion KRA can't seem to account for. But we had a situation where he reported that the Ministry of Health couldn't account for 5 billion. 5 billion. The response was certain high-ranking officials within the ministry, mostly from procurement and finance, were told to step aside. Okay? What became of them thereafter, I don't really know. But there were talk of them being prosecuted, blah, 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 blah. Now, when one hears that 5 billion shillings from the ministry has been apparently not accounted for, again, politeness, okay, here, you ask, so what services are we going to miss out on? Because this money was there for a purpose.
What's the impact of
It isn't sent so that it can be misappropriated. It is sent so that it can, yes. Is it the buying of drugs? Is it to pay for the increase in salary that was agreed upon when they had the meetings with the unions? What is it for? What is a constant is that certain services which were supposed to be provided go unprovided for. So it isn't just this particular ministry. This one acquires horrendous proportions because you're asking yourself, you're talking about people who, it was understood, had challenges in meeting this particular need,
Yes.
and it
From
was
the
interfering
beginning.
with
Yeah.
their learning processes.
From the
So
beginning.
you
yeah.
you cannot you cannot allow such a thing to happen. It was understood. The process was moved along to the point where it even had a budgetary allocation, and then they're not bought.
And we keep passing on.
And then they're not bought. And
we,
then
we just keep discussing it like it's something. It's
Yes.
nothing. A girl has committed suicide here. I mean, a girl who should have benefited from this program did not benefit from the program. What happened?
Well, I don't think
She
we
was
have
shamed
concrete evidence that there's a causal link per se, Eric. She committed suicide because of the shame she faced. She could have had pads, but maybe hadn't had a chance to change it. So I can't, you're pushing it a bit and saying it's because the government did not provide pads for her that she committed suicide. It was the teacher's irresponsibility and recklessness that led to this. It was
Nope.
a stigma attached to
Stigma
menstruation.
came after the non-provision.
Yes.
The chicken, in this case, came before
No.
the egg.
You're,
we were clear about this one.
you're saying it's because she didn't have a pad. Maybe her period started on that day, so she didn't know. So maybe she has pads at home. Do you see what I mean? The government.
But what if,
I'm not
what
saying
if they
the
were
government.
there?
I'm
What
not
if they
saying-
had pads in the school?
I'm-
If the
Wouldn't
school
that
had
have made the
pads.
situation
She could have still stained herself, even if the school had
Yes,
pads.
but
The shame
If
that's
her
would have
period
been
came
there,
on
yes.
that day. What I'm saying is there's no direct causal link like
There
you're
is-
suggesting.
listen,
with this
Jerry,
particular
there
murder,
were no
the beauty
pads.
with this
No,
particular
it's there.
suicide,
There were
I
no
disagree.
pads.
the beauty
There.
of it is that it's brought
There
us
were
to
no
have this
pads in
discussion.
school.
The facts are
We are not
clear here,
assuming.
Jerry.
The facts are clear.
There were no pads.
There were no pads in school
And the school is supposed to provide pads for such a girl.
on such days of emergencies.
Yes.
Okay. The girl was in class. The story goes as such. The girl was in class. She stood up to speak, to answer a question, and there was a stain, and the teacher ridiculed her, made fun of her, which was shameful, and she went home and committed suicide. She could have just started her period on that day. This has nothing to do with the fact that there were no pads in the school. What we should be focusing on here is the stigma I appreciate this discussion. I'm glad it's gone on to the provision of services by government, no doubt. But we haven't looked at the stigma that lies within menstruation for women. When I say stigma, societal stigma, and the fact that this teacher did not live up to the expectations that we would for an adult.
One does not negate
No,
the
no,
other.
Eric,
No. What I'm saying is there's no causal link like you're
Gary wants us
suggesting.
to discuss causal effects. Okay. What do you think made the teacher do what she did? You do know that what you are calling stigma or stigma activities or reactions related to stigma have to do sometimes with someone feeling disabled. If the teacher was not in a position.
We can speculate about the teacher's
But I'm
psychology.
doing the
That's
same
something
thing
else.
you're
All I
doing.
was saying is it's
I'm
very...
extending your
no,
theory of
I think it's
speculation,
very
and I'm
wrong of
saying-
us to say the child committed suicide, the adolescent committed suicide because government did not provide pads.
Oh,
no,
yes.
she
Oh, yes.
committed
Grace.
suicide. No, I don't
Grace,
think you
Grace,
can...
Grace,
you can't
you
distill it
disagree
to
on
that
this.
level.
I disagree, Njeri.
Okay, go on.
Because yes, the facts are there. She could have she most definitely started, that same day, and yes, she soiled herself, and the shame was there. But if this institution, this organization, this government that is tasked to provide these sanitary towels, if they were there, we could have averted this situation.
How so? How would that have
Would have
stopped the
had-
teacher from embarrassing her, from shaming her?
The damage
It is the
has already been
societal
done.
attitudes. You
you're
know the
taking
reason.
the blame not
I'm
society,
not.
are you?
No. I'm not. I'm not trying
one
to.
does not negate the other.
I'm not
Yes,
trying
there
to
are two
sanitize the
there are two
government in
things,
any way.
Jerry.
I
But
agree.
you're trying very
I
hard
agree.
to.
No. I agree they have failed. But my fear is if we take that trajectory on this conversation, we're going to miss out something very important here.
We are not going to miss
which
it
I have
out.
pointed out was the idea of shaming based on menstruation, the stigma around it, and the teacher's responsibility to this child and the emotional well-being of a student. The fact that we've removed corporal punishment and we now need to look at emotional abuse. Those are the discussions we should be having.
0719 012 Those are the discussions that we're going to be having in the next hour. It's now 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room.
Spice up your life.
All right, Thika Road, we still have an issue this morning, and it's literally blocked in all directions, whether you're heading towards the CBD or whether you're heading towards Roy Sambu. Driving from Mombasa Road to Nairobi nowadays is such a smooth ride, apparently, and it doesn't seem as if the transport sector had totally disrupted the road coming from the SGR, if you wake up early, that is. Limuru Road at Muthaiga to Parklands is a parking lot, unfortunately. And we still have issues coming into the CBD because of the heavy traffic coming out of Thika Road. Apart from that, Langata Road and Jogo Road seem to be flowing smoothly this morning. Anything else that we need to know about, do give us a call. Our number remains at 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Njeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We've got a guest this morning with us. Grace Courier, journalist with KTN News, has joined us this morning. We're discussing the provision of sanitary towels to school-going children. Also, we are looking at the stigma associated with menstruation. In this day and age, Jerry says, we shouldn't be even discussing this issue. And indeed, that's true. There are many organizations that have come up and they're pushing this agenda. As Grace, you were telling us, they were pushing this agenda. Why do we still have stigmatization associated with menstruation?
It's sad. It's really sad. And I think this is where I agree, with Njeri, a societal issue. And what, again, the female teacher did is unfair. But allow me, Eric, to just fall back to my disagreement with Njeri earlier on. Because, yes, the damage had already been done. This teacher had already embarrassed, the girl, Jacqueline, and it had already affected her esteem and all that. But if the sanitary towels were there, because I'm thinking it's not just, providing the sanitary towels and just dumping them there. There is someone who's told this is what you do, in case the person doesn't know. And of course, the children also are made to understand. So my feeling and my thinking is, if this particular school in Bomet, it has a really difficult one, I can't remember it.
School in Bomet.
But if that school in Bomet had these sanitary towels, Jacqueline would not have committed suicide.
Should not have felt the way she felt.
I don't think, no.
The teacher would have been prepared. You see,
no, well, I mean, you could argue
the
it
teacher
that
would
far.
have been prepared.
You could argue it that far, but that's really reaching. I think at the crux of the matter is she was embarrassed. This has nothing to do with whether there was government had provided sanitary towels or not, because we don't know, as I said, whether she had just started menstruating at that very moment. So whether or not there had been sanitary towels, she still would have been ashamed.
Do you think the program to supply sanitary towels to schools is just that? It's like supplying of pencils?
I think it
should
was
go
not
beyond that. It should
well,
go
absolutely. I think in its initiation, I don't think the outcomes, again, were taken into consideration of the immense power such a program could have in terms of what it could do for girls, because really we need to understand what it does when they don't have them, when they're forced to miss school, or where they have a situation where they will be shamed, where they've been soiled or they've been stained, etc., etc., and they have to literally do the walk of shame. It is not something that you want to gloss over and deem as unimportant. So now we're looking at a situation when an entire country, a government, then tasks themselves with filling or with plugging that hole, and then they fail, giving hope to millions of girls for those 5 days every month of the year. And then they fail. You give it and then you take it back. You take us 3 million steps back. How can we be having this conversation now, today, 2019? Let's look at our calendar, just in case we've forgotten where we are, really. How do we subject girls to this over and over again? It's even more painful when we look at the situation where we say it has then been provided. And, still with that money that has been provided, still it was not enough. We're looking at four packs is what was provided for 3.7 million girls. Not even the total number of girls that needed to be served, and not even an adequate number in terms of what needed to be provided. Even that was not enough. So again, it strikes me as something where it is, yes, Eric, as you said before, tokenism. Okay, yeah, they're making a little bit of noise. Let's give them this and maybe they can keep quiet. And then what happens after that? Because we're looking at a process that is as common physiologically as anything else. You came with it. It's not something that was manufactured along the way. You came with it by virtue of the fact that you were born a girl. It comes with the package. It is going to happen. And so they take the responsibility to do something about it, and then a few steps down the line they fail, driving us 3 million steps backwards, yes, into the dark ages. And that's where we're living now.
I appreciate your frustration with the government, and I'm not undermining or underplaying what you're saying, but what I would really like us to focus on, and what I think this case brings out, is the social stigma, the taboo around menstruation. I think Grace has made the assertion that if government had indeed provided sanitary towels, the young lady wouldn't have killed herself. I don't think that's the case. You can't say, but for the government having provided towels, Jacqueline would have been alive. I think that would probably be the case.
No, but to be fair, that's just one of the factors, Njeri.
It's not something that we can overlook. But what's most important here, if there was no taboo around this, she wouldn't have committed suicide, and that's really what we need to be dealing with.
And if we're taking it seriously,
why is there that cultural taboo around menstruation? And it stems from the Bible. You're declared unclean, and you can't be touched for 7 days thereafter. But where did this cultural taboo come from, and how can we destigmatize menstruation? I think that should be the focus, and of course the responsibility then thereafter of teachers on children's emotional well-being and so on. I think those are the two things that should be discussed. Yeah.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. I've got Abraham from Nairobi. Good morning, Abraham.
Good morning. Hello to all.
Morning, Abraham.
Yeah. I would like to contribute to the topic today.
Yes, go ahead.
And I think Njeri is right. Yeah, so it's the stigmatization that is wrong. Not that there aren't sanitary pads or not. The sanitary pads, for all we know, could have been in her desk at that point. But the issue, the teacher actually ridiculed her and made her feel less of a person. So that's the issue. Yeah, and keep up the good work. I'm a very big fan of the show.
Yep.
And Njeri?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you mind maybe later on, as in, could you go back to your ideas of benevolent dictatorship when you were talking about?
We'll talk about them. We could come back to it. Absolutely, it's an ongoing topic. We haven't exhausted
It's an ongoing conversation, Abraham.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of that idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling in this morning, Abraham.
Let me ask this question: the issue surrounding cancer. Did cancer suddenly become existence in Kenya when some like 3 leading lights who are members of the political class suddenly go down?
No, it was there before.
It has been in existence.
At what point did the country sort of like galvanize and then suddenly it was the topic and remained the topic for some time? When 3 leading lights passed away, isn't it? Okay. Now, the issue of sanitary pads and the relation to the girls, this young lady who really unfortunately passed away, her passing away has helped highlight this issue. And the story around it, it wasn't she was beaten, it wasn't, no. Sanitary pads. And sanitary pads for young girls whose parents actually cannot afford
them.
Because if they could, you know your menstrual cycle, even if it isn't exact, you have an idea, people get prepared. Sanitary pads. This highlights it. And who is supposed to be responsible for the sanitary pads? The government.
And you know, because we're looking at a situation whereby they said, we see the situation and we are then going to set up a national program to take care of this problem. So now when you prefer it, you give hope, you do that. We cannot assume that you understand all the factors around it. We would hope that you would. We would hope that you would do a little bit of homework and actually find out what is really going on and how far and how wide-reaching such a promise or such a statement would be. In the event that you don't do it, this is the widespread destruction that we are looking at. You still keep these girls out of school. We still have a situation where they're left to their own makeshift devices, because really that is what happens. And that's why I say dark ages, because of the things that that girls have to do when in the absence of sanitary pads, is actually, it's even for them, it is even further more demoralizing for them. So you come up with a national program. You say you're going to make this available. Okay, you do it. For 4 months out of the year, that is what you make provision for. Then we get into the next financial year.
How should we address the stigma then as well? At the same time, so we are providing this, yes, but also this program should come with destigmatization. It should come with creating of awareness, because the girls would know this. This is a natural biological process. The boys need to know. The entire community needs to know. And I mean, it should become a non-issue. How should we do this, Jerry? Because you're saying this is something we should not ignore.
I'm saying this is really the matter at heart with regards to this unfortunate incident. It's good we can also use it as a launch pad to put pressure on the government to deliver on its promises to provide sanitary towels. But the issue at heart here is the stigmatization of menstruation, and of course the teacher's reaction and her responsibility to the student and the student's emotional well-being. I don't have a solution as to how we can destigmatize the taboo around menstruation. As I said, it's deep-rooted even in, with biblical citations of it. Of course, I would go back and say it probably falls back to the patriarchy as well, the fact that there's a patriarchy and there's a shame in being, just by virtue of being a woman in Kenya. It's a shameful thing almost, the way things exist. So I wouldn't have a solution per se, but the fact that we're having conversations such as these starts to go a long way. Maybe better sex education at school from a young age so that people understand the biological aspect of what menstruation is. It's not just an unclean consequence of something. It's, there's a biological process taking place of which we need as a species, and, keep it purely scientific, explained to people. So maybe better sex education at school from a younger age. and more conversations around it. But I don't have the silver bullet for how to destigmatize menstruation.
I agree with that, but then perhaps part of, as a parting shot, I think it's time for action because it's pretty much what we've been saying. We talk a lot. I mean, when the 3 leaders passed on, Bob Collymore, Ken Okoth, Joyce Laboso, there was talk about cancer. But right now, honestly, it's sort of dying. It's no longer there. Right now, because of Jacqueline, there's talk about the sanitary towels. But a month from now, will it still be there? If we could go back to her case, we're working on assumptions. We're not sure if that's the day that she started. So, assuming it was her second day and there was sanitary towels in school, would she have soiled herself? No.
Could have leaked. No, it could have leaked. I'm not trying to stop you from lobbying for the government to provide sanitary towels.
Facts and lobbying.
But no. When I say lobbying, I'm saying it's a good thing. I'm positive about it, and it's something I would also encourage that we use this as a platform or a launch pad to do that. But in doing so, we move away from the crux of the matter and what is at heart and what is most important and why this girl killed herself, which is what needs to be addressed, the stigma. And then the teacher's reaction. But if we keep saying, well, government should have provided pads, yes, all well and good. Government may have provided pads and she leaks. Then what?
We're not overlooking that. We've addressed the stigma. It was there. It was wrong of the female teacher. I'm not by any means defending what she did. That was absolutely uncalled for. That's an issue that we need to address.
Deconstruct. At what point do teachers feel it's okay to shame students? At what point, how far do we let teachers emotionally abuse our students? As I've said, corporal punishment has been banned. We now need to understand that there's emotional abuse that can take place. And this is a classic example of it. And if we take that and actually amplify that conversation, we can then see even legislation come into place to make sure that children are treated correctly, even by teachers, from an emotional perspective. That's what I'm saying. Those are the conversations we need to be having, and around then the stigma around the menstruation. But if we keep saying, well, government should have provided pads, yes, they should have, understood. And they're not, understood. That's a different case. Maybe there's corruption behind that. We will discuss corruption. But let's not lose this opportunity to talk about the fact that this girl was shamed to her death. That is what is that's the important thing here.
If you want to take this argument about the state of mind of the girl, because that's what we're discussing here, we don't know what the state of the mind of the girl. We don't know whether she was predisposed towards suicidal tendencies.
Before you carry on, I don't like you to build on false premises. In law, when you commit...
Are premises determined to be false because you deem them so? Or is it because I've raised an issue that contradicts your previous assertions?
You cannot... There's something called the thin skull rule. Siti, if I come and kill you, I can't argue as a defense. No, hold on. I can't argue as a defense. Well, he was going to die anyway, or he was weak. No, you cannot take into account this girl's state of mind previously to remove blame from the teacher. It's something called the thin skull rule. You find if she was culpable of anything, she's not, as the law stands, per se, or on the face of it, she's not culpable. But if she was, it cannot be argued that we did not know the state of mind of this person. I cannot punch Eric, and because he has a glass jaw, he dies, or he has something wrong with his brain already, he dies. And then I use that as a defense. It's called the thin skull rule. The way you find somebody, that's it. It's still murder. Are we together on that?
And that is why, so according to people like you who study the law, will say they'll determine, okay, the punch, is it the sort of punch that could have killed him? So did he intentionally intend to kill him? So is it murder? Is it manslaughter? These facts you cannot run away. If you want to follow that argument, then let's take it to its logical conclusion. Let's look at the state of the mind of the teacher. Was this teacher in their right mind? Is this something the teacher is known to do?
Now that she can use as a defense.
She has done in the past? No.
Which then goes down to societal attitudes. Why are we okay with insulting and abusing and emotionally abusing children?
We are not. And that is why the state of mind of the teacher would come into play should this person have been teaching in the first place. Yes.
Absolutely. Those are the discussions we should be having.
Teacher? You see, I am not saying we shouldn't have those discussions. You are insisting that those are discussions that must take center stage. And I am saying...
They must be at the fore, considering what has happened.
No.
Absolutely.
No. The girl died because there were no sanitary pads. It's not even a
She did not die because there were no sanitary pads. How do those two connect? Maybe, as the caller said, there were sanitary pads in her desk. Who
see,
knows?
You're
She died because she was
now,
ashamed.
Jerry, because you're now saying
she died
other
because she was
things could have
ashamed.
played into this. And when I talk
No,
about
no,
her
no,
state
no,
of
she
mind,
died.
you're saying thin skull rule, we can't look into that. So what do we look into and what do we not look into following the thin skull rule?
She died because of the stigma.
But is there
and
a thick skull rule
thick
as well?
skull rule as well.
Or a strong bone rule.
Well, since, yeah.
All these things.
While we're at it, let's talk about rules in existence. Yes?
So I think there are very many factors
we are
that
all
need
in
to
agreement.
be. There are very, very many factors
Yes.
that need to be considered. However, I think we also need to look at the basics. When definitely stigma is something, because now we now go into the psychological and we now look at issues affecting children and now affecting outcome. There's so many issues that we can now tackle across board. Looking at this specific issue in terms of what will be provided based on what families are able to afford or not in order for them to attend school. Let's not even talk about how they are feeling or what they're thinking. Attending school, going to school, not missing on those 4 or 5 days a month. And we say that here is a particular group of young women or young girls who are unable to have this need met.
Let's come to
the government
final
said they
word.
was going to fill that spot. It should be done. It should be filled. Let's get that part out of the way. The money that was budgeted for, bring it. Let's buy.
Do
these
what you're
things.
supposed to do, and then let's
start
see
there.
what else happens.
Yes.
0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. Amos in Thika, good morning.
Good morning. Let me say this.
Yes.
Now, I remember one time back in primary school, there was this student who had pimples on his face. And the teacher came and told the student, the pupil, you look like a chapati. Now, the teacher was not fired. Nothing happened.
Right.
But the student dropped school. Here's my point.
Yeah.
Adolescents, at a very little provocation, may do anything. Right?
Yeah.
So we can't blame the government for having not given sanitary pads, whether they were there or they were not. I think what we need to see is how our teachers are trained, how our teachers mentor our students, because, based on what that we've received is that this was the girls' first time, right? So how do we deal with adolescents at school, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I think should happen. We need to give our students, our children, more sexual education, and this taboo thing, it's I think.
Hello?
I think.
Hello?
Okay, I think we lost him.
We lost him? Well, no, he makes a good point. He says we should focus on the psychology of an adolescent because they're vulnerable, fragile, malleable, permeable.
True.
All those words. And in doing so, of course, have better trained teachers if you're having to deal with teenagers.
I also have Grace who's calling in from Lovington this morning. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
Fine, thank you, Grace.
Thanks for bringing up this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I am a former member of parliament.
Okay.
And during my term, somewhere around 2017, I did amend the Education Act, the Basic Education Act, to tell the government to provide a budget to give every girl in basic primary school a sanitary pad.
Okay.
And the act passed. It was signed by the president immediately before the campaigns of 2017. And I think this thing sits squarely on the Ministry of Education to have seen that issue and provide the sanitary pads as per law.
So then, Grace, if I may ask you, if this was signed into law and there was budgetary allocation that was done, maybe you can help us understand then why does it not translate to actual provision of these things in school for these girls? If we are looking at clearly something that was signed at the level of the president and then, enacting it is law, and there's a budget for it, then why does it not translate into the actual distribution of these at school?
I think it's an issue of implementation and management. Somebody somewhere is not following up the issue.
Yep.
As a ministry, and I am sure you remember, guys, something about periods of shame somewhere in Baringo sometime, early 2013 or 14 there. Do you remember when we did this thing of Inua Dada?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing pained me. I was a leader in Baringo, the women rep of Baringo then. And after we looked around, collected sanitary pads, went down there with Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta and distributed, I thought that we needed a solution to this problem. Because I myself, I grew up in the rural areas, and those things, when you don't have those things and you soil your clothes in class, it is deadly. You really feel like dying. So I came up with that issue. I amended the Education Act, hoping that the ministry concerned would do the right thing and ensure that those rural, especially the rural girls or those who are in poor areas, are able to be given those things. And without periods, there are no children, there are no human race.
Exactly.
So, Grace, how do we deal with the stigmatization as well? We've lost Grace.
Oh, okay. Good insights there.
Well, yes, at least we've heard about it. So let's wind up on this actually topic, so we can also excuse Grace, who needs to report to work. Right, Grace?
Is this not work?
This is a side gig.
All right.
Grace took time off to be on leave.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, for me, the stigma, Jerry, it shouldn't be there. It's unacceptable. I think we can all agree on that. And what the female teacher did was totally uncalled for. And it's sad that we lost Jacqueline because of that. But then again, it's also even more sad that because of greed of particular individuals, we are where we are right now. So do what you need to do. Do what you're tasked to do.
Supposed to do.
If there was an allocation of 460 million shillings, the money is out there. We're not talking about there's no money. Pesa iko. Where are the pads? Where are the sanitary towels? That's it for me.
Thank you. CT.
You know, when Jerry's absolutely right is this. She didn't say this. I'm saying it for her.
I'm always right.
Oh, here we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Now you're taking on her role.
No, I'm not taking. Yes,
for today.
I've learned from the best. So yes,
You've got a thick skull.
Thin skull. Yes, the issue of the young lady was highlighted. The issue of stigma was highlighted, but the issue of teachers and their contribution to the welfare of their students was also highlighted. So as we highlight these issues, let's look at the position, the condition of teachers, and the conditions under which they perform these tasks that we demand of them.
Yep.
Yes.
Jerry, conclude on this.
I think we come again to societal attitudes towards younger people, students, children, and the fact that we can say anything to them. Because if this was a grown-up, the teacher would not have behaved in that way. But it's, almost free for all with kids. And again, as per the earlier conversation on what time kids wake up, we just don't place enough emphasis on children's emotional well-being. Something we need to start doing as a society.
I think it's easier for us to look at situations like this, even as leaders or those who are in positions of influence, to say that, okay, it's not much of a big issue and we can kind of glide over it without having a full understanding of the ramifications of us not doing what we're supposed to do. Something as simple as having a budget and allocating it to getting something done, because then now we avoid so many things later if we actually do the right thing from the beginning. Do the right thing, and it now has a domino effect on everything else that happens when it is done, or in this case not done, as we can see.
Let's bring back Grace on air. Grace, thank you for calling back this morning. We lost you, but we were at the point where we were asking you about stigmatization and how to deal with stigmatization.
Well, no one should, any other human being should never stigmatize the other. Especially on issues like as natural as those what a girl went through, or anything else. You see, in this world, no one is perfect, and situations arise that can affect one person in a negative way out of no fault of their own, and we need to empathize instead of stigmatizing people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what are the reasons?
Yeah.
You were saying something. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, to me, I really felt very sad for what happened in Kericho, and I want to ask the ministry concerned to see this as a wake-up call and do the right thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Grace, actually, now that you're online and you championed this law, we understand that the responsibility has been moved from the Ministry of Education to the Ministry of Gender. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. In fact, it should be now sitting in the right place, and the women running the issues in the gender ministry should take it up and ensure that those sanitary pads are bought. And there are so many other people who are even willing to donate those things. They should just try to create an opportunity where they make sure that those things reach the girls in the schools here.
Thank you very much for your contribution this morning. This is Grace Kiptui, former woman rep for Baringo County, right?
Thank you, Ladesh.
Asante sana for calling in. And also we want to thank you, Grace, for joining us this morning. Thank you for your contribution to what we've been discussing. Children waking up too early to go to school, girls in school not getting sanitary towels as they require. Basically, it's just affecting the well-being of the girl child or the child in school all together. Asante sana. We hope that we'll be able to see you in a couple of days, all right? When you come up with another award-winning story.
Amen.
Come and share it here with us first.
Certainly.
And then we can have that conversation here.
Okay. Once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Asante sana. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues right after this, where we shall be discussing about FinTech, that is financial technology. How well are you versed with these matters? Siti Muga will be taking us through this. Good morning. It's 8:30.
Calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC, courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with The Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Find a home.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, the frustration on the roads has gone beyond just cars being bumper to bumper, and people are now saying, why do we have these constant perennial issues with traffic every morning? Who in a position of leadership is not doing their job? I guess that is the question that continues to rise in whatever sector we find ourselves in. All right, we still have the same issue on Thika Road. The same applies on Wayaki Way, as is on Mombasa Road, getting into the city center. We're asking you to be patient, but traffic really is bumper to bumper everywhere you go. Nothing out of the ordinary now. I guess it is the hour when we look at definitely traffic case in any specific road that we look at. If there's something out of the ordinary, or even better, if you find an alternate route that people could use wherever you are, give us a call. The number is 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, in Nyeri, Euro 90.9, and Malindi, 97.6. We are live streaming as we always do every morning. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on YouTube, www.spicefm.co.ke. The conversation is on Twitter as well, and Spice FM KE. Now let's talk about fintech. Last week, we actually looked at some study that was done by the Kenya Bankers Association, which told us how people are borrowing through the mobile apps. These are advancements that have taken place in this country, and they are helping us access financial services.
In your opinion, Eric, were the findings, was it positive? Did they give a positive review of the banking apps? Because remember, these are very direct competitors to what they actually do.
Well, not direct review, but they were showing that actually people are using these apps. If you look at it from the positive angle, yes, people have actually taken on these services. People are going to seek loans from these apps, and the apps have become very popular. In fact, we even know Safaricom launched one, and it was very, very popular. Within a month, they had actually lent out so much.
You know, when the Bankers Association writes about apps, you get the impression that they do not consider the fintech industry as part of the banking sector. It's like these are the people who are competing with our core business. And that's why I asked. Yes, it's one thing to point out what it is that they do, but the thing that came out pointedly was the extremely exorbitant interest rates that are charged. And the interest rates that were charged raised a moral issue. Is it right for them to raise? And my thinking is it even right to have banks? But that's what I want to discuss today. I want to discuss fintech, okay?
Not philosophy, please, not today.
You know, let me talk about some figures here. You know, the parent company of M-Pesa is called Safaricom.
Yes.
Right now in this country, Safaricom controls 40% of what you have, the shares in the NSE, Nairobi Stock Exchange. The value, the net value, is controlled by Safaricom. Now, you're talking about an NSE that has how many banks in it?
Quite a number.
Precisely. Yes. How many other industries? Quite a number. Now, a non-banking sector having this amount of value, it's a high proportion. But more significantly, so M-Pesa and its achievements and the progress was so phenomenal that people started looking into it and people started talking about it globally. Now, two people, one called Suri, the other called Newman. They came from very prestigious universities. One, MIT, the other, Georgetown universities. Now, they wrote glowing report about M-Pesa, its virtues, what it's doing, what it can do to spur on development, how it has brought developmental and financial issues to the poor. But others have, with time, poked holes into it and said there are certain basic constructs within research that they didn't follow and they didn't look at. Now, whenever one talks at any phenomenon, because really fintech, financial technology is a phenomenon, given how people have taken up to it and how people are roping it. And people are, on the one side, there are those who say it is the financial miracle. There are those who say these are false messiahs, okay? The global technology and the solution to the poor is just a way of, they call it technology, it's digital mining. Here they are trying to ensure that they gain as much as possible from the poor. And the example that they give is what happened a little earlier on, the first 10 years of this particular century, when we had financial meltdowns in the UK and the US. And they say, like, some of the mortgages that they were offering, okay, and they likened even to gambling. Right. They said they were focusing on the very, very poor people. And they say, these are the end results of this. The question that comes to mind is, do we have a situation where the financial technology Kenya is currently enjoying, and which is enjoying a huge boom, whether it's going to go that way and whether we will have a meltdown? Is there a likelihood that what seems to be a wonderful thing and what seems to be providing Kenyans with the ability, people whose incomes are not that high, have the ability to actually borrow and do, is it something that is leading them to an abyss that they will not be able to pull out from? Is it leading them to eternal debt? I'm asking these questions because the reality is there is no good thing that can be stated that doesn't have a backside. Adam Smith, who at some point was considered the father of modern economics, said that, it isn't from the benevolence of the butcher or the baker that we enjoy our dinner, but it is from our own undertaking. I've paraphrased it. So, what is our undertaking against this particular phenomenon that now faces, which on the face of it is a really wonderful thing?
So, well, okay. So what you're saying is people are actually using these services and they are getting easily accessible loans, not cheap loans, easily accessible loans. But those loans end up becoming very expensive. So people could be borrowing themselves into financial crisis, into trouble.
Yes.
That this could be a negative thing.
Yes.
Having access to loans, such easy access to loan, could actually be detrimental.
What was the very report that you mentioned? There was a talk of the number of young people who've been able to borrow from a facility that some of these fintech has, and the number reaches upon an alarming 500,000. Okay, and they were reported by the CRB as not being able to pay, and this again raises a different debate. Now, that young people can borrow. You see, what you're asking is, at that age when one borrows, does one have the ability to understand financial discipline? Or is this their process of beginning to understand financial discipline?
Or the ability
So it's
to
not
pay
just
back?
the discipline per se. You said the word understand, and I thought of financial literacy, which is what a lot of these mobile apps, these fintech applications are targeting. A lot of people don't realize what a percentage or interest rate means and how expensive it is, and the way it's framed as well. You know, if you say 10%, it doesn't sound like very much, but of course, if that's monthly and cumulatively and so on. So there's no financial literacy, and it's least amongst the groups that they're targeting. So amongst the youth, for instance, or amongst women, or amongst even people in rural areas. So they take advantage, and I think that's one of the unethical things about fintech and financial lending with these mobile apps. Of course, also there's the fact that it's not regulated. It does all the things or carries out all the operations that a bank would, but without the regulations of a bank.
Is there any institution that actually prides itself in conducting that education? Financial education.
Prides itself.
Because
do they exist? Let's get to basics. Do they exist? Please.
I don't think there's anything like that does exist, because that's not even in their focus. The
I should
focus
ask you
is
the question that
is
Jerry would have asked
commercialization,
today.
to make money.
If she didn't raise this one, should have been the one who's asking. Is it their role?
Yes,
Is it
it
the
is.
job of the fintech organization or the financial institution to actually teach you how to use the money that you borrow?
To be financially
Or
responsible at the
no,
same
no,
time.
I'm not even talking about the responsibility.
Or
and
to
what you do,
understand-
to understand
what
the
you borrowed.
financial. Would they have maybe as CSR? They could do so, but also in doing so, the benefits of having borrowed would be much higher for the people who borrowed. So there would be a mutual symbiotic good relationship, and this notion or this perception that they are extortionists, so to speak,
Wouldn't CT would understand them better.
it wouldn't come out. So there's
Look,
that.
extortion, when one is referred as an extortionate, it's not an insult, it's a description.
And then on top of that,
What
there's
it is
also
that
the
you're
level of
actually
debt.
doing.
Yes.
Household indebtedness is going up, which is also very dangerous. It's led to a lot of, we've seen suicides and so on. So what role do they play in that in terms of highlighting these things? Usually you see in adverts the little disclaimers. I haven't seen that many here, but I know perhaps in the UK when you'd watch an advert, at the end of it there would be a very quick, smoking is really bad for you. So never they'd spend 10 seconds
It's
doing
there
that
by law,
or
yes.
whichever.
For
So
all-
so maybe that's a sort of regulation the banks need to bring into it, where they actually break this down. I don't know how far they can simplify the repercussions of borrowing X amount of money and what it means, and make it salient and tangible for the borrower so that they fully understand it.
I don't think
And-
banks would want to enter into kind of because then it's
No,
for
they
them it's
wouldn't want to,
counterintuitive, because these a lot of these apps, for example, that we are actually
They prey on the very
staking-
fact that people don't know
Yes,
what they're
exactly.
doing.
And secondly, the other option was for you to go to the bank. So the bank would very much welcome you walking into their doors,
Let me
as
point
opposed to
out here-
going onto your phone to borrow, for example.
Let me
They don't
point
want
out
you
here
to
that
do that.
also the commercial banks that are regulated by the commercial, in fact, we have that in the adverts. This bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Right, yeah.
Right? So those banks that are regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya also have fintech. Right? So they've also introduced.
They've also embraced it,
They've also
actually.
embraced it.
Which is
In
not
fact,
good
and
because of
they're leading.
accessibility. So they also fall into the unethical practices, I believe, because it makes loans so accessible. So you could be drunk, you could be at a bar drinking, and you need
Just
a bit
want
of
to top
extra
up,
money and you top up.
It's
There
interesting.
should be a few barriers when it comes to getting into debt, just so that your decision-making process is a bit elongated and you have time
Why?
to take it
Why?
to make a better informed decision. You take more factors into consideration.
The people who have actually taken, that take these loans actually see these fintech institutions or organizations actually as the modern day financial savior.
Yeah, and they're saviors.
And to say, look, I needed 5,000 shillings quickly. I will not walk to the bank and now fill in 8 pages and pages of documentation asking me to mortgage, or rather asking me to bring
Bring in
security of my
security.
goat and my house and every other electronical,
Of
device that I
course.
own.
My
But I
name
can
is
go
my
on my
bond.
phone. Exactly. I go on my phone. I can ask for 5,000 shillings and I get it. So yes, the fintech companies come and stand in as financial savior for a lot of people. And it's interesting because then banks have seen that is the trend and have actually taken on this practice as well. And so you have a lot of, just like you said, a lot of banks now, dabbling in fintech as well, because they see that is where the masses have gone.
I see it as a good thing because, it makes it easier for you to transact with the financial institution. You want to transact with the bank, you have access to your bank on your mobile phone.
Fingertips,
You don't
literally.
need to, travel all the way to queue
Of
in a
course,
bank
there's the
branch
issue
in
of
a
data
brick
as
and
well
mortar.
and what they do with your data.
Yes, there's that as well. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with what banks are doing? What's wrong with fintech? I mean, this is technological advancements. We need to pride ourselves
I don't
in
think
that.
it's an issue of right or wrong. We're just saying that are people aware? I mean, really asking ourselves, are we aware of what we're getting into? Is it a problem? Are we getting into an issue? Are we getting to an issue now where we have a lot of people now who are borrowing from one? If we're just looking specifically at the loan issue, borrowing from one to pay the other, and then borrowing from another then to pay the other.
Taking this technological thing to the to its logical conclusion, there is a country, Estonia, that has done it. So in Estonia, you actually find that probably the only time someone goes to the bank is when you're registering, because you have to be physically there.
And after that, they never visit the
After
four
that,
walls
What
again.
for? In fact, banks share halls.
Banks are
Yeah.
shutting down actually.
They share halls.
Abroad.
Okay, so it's not something that whose conclusion has not been seen, and this wouldn't happen if they didn't find it beneficial. Because the very thing you want is what you get now. We are moving into the realm of trying to police how people should spend their money
Or how they should borrow.
and how they should borrow, and what they need to do in order to borrow. And whether you should borrow when you're in a bar or whether you're in a church or whether in a bakery.
When the pastor is breathing down your throat, contribute, and you
Yes.
don't
Or
have
when
any
you're in a
M-Pesa,
Harambee.
and you go to the
Yes.
mobile app Fuliza
Yes.
quickly, the pastor has said. So I mean, really, this is what
But
we're looking at.
it is important to bring this into discussion because a lot of our spending pattern tells us about what we think and how we prioritize things as a nation. But let's say it's a discussion for another day. But the platform that has been made popular by M-Pesa, okay, has become a subject of discussion worldwide is something we need. It is not something, it isn't a minor thing, it isn't a non-issue. Papers have been written that have actually influenced the thinking of the world. 2016, okay? I'm being an academic here, Jerry. If you'll give me just a second to say this, okay? This article appeared in the Science Journal of 2016, The Long-Run Poverty and Gender Impacts of Mobile Money. This particular article influenced many thinkers in this particular field and raised the debate that has continued to debate. What is of interest is this debate is taking place out there more than it is taking place in Kenya. We're not really discussing it. It means, as far as we're concerned, it's a good thing, so why discuss it? Remember, in Kenya, we discuss it when it is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
And
So
we immediately seek a solution and stop discussing it.
and we blame the government. Is that not so?
Yeah.
Precisely. Even though it's a private company, we will blame the government. But we are not discussing this thing adequately in this country. And yet, we have become a case study for the rest of the planet.
Yeah, poster child for the globe in terms of
The
how it should
negative
work.
aspects of people who've been looking into this, again, have appeared in articles. Jerry, with your permission again, let me just quote. I'm being academic here.
I won't interrupt.
They're saying that it's the study was called the Contemporary Platform, which operates in neoliberal Africa. Okay, and specifically they looked at how digital mining might actually affect the Kenyan potential growth and development. This entire process is being referred to in this discussion as digital mining, and they're saying, if it continues, the very money that the individuals who are considered to be poor in this country, which could have been used for development, might actually not be used for development. But the question I ask is, what makes them think that they don't borrow for that very purpose of development?
For development.
Yes.
Many who borrow from, from what Safaricom has actually said, Safaricom and KCB, and what they've said, is when people are coming to borrow, those little amounts, they're actually borrowing in the morning because they are traders, so they borrow money that serves as a daily capital, and they pay back in the evening.
They do.
So it's for development.
Yes, it is.
Clearly.
Yes.
And then we've also seen from that report, there are those who are borrowing, to invest in betting. So
It's an investment.
It's an investment.
Chancy, but
Even those-
investment.
I mean, Safaricom is going to paint a glossy picture, no doubt. But even those borrowing in business, sometimes they get into so much more debt that their business actually collapses because of the high interest rate. So it's not
Yes.
as beneficial. Yes, it seems as it comes in as an emergency loan, but given the high interest rates, it can actually drive businesses to the ground so that somebody simply is working simply to pay off the loan. And so they're not earning, the sustenance that they were getting from the business in the first instance. But with fintech, one thing we're also not discussing is this idea of automation and where jobs will go. So if banks are closing down, they're one of the biggest employers, or they employ quite a lot of graduates that come out of university all the time. So we maybe need to start advising people to study IT now because, your usual banking jobs, bank teller and so on might not be there. So maybe something to discuss. And then I wanted to chip in with something CT said without interrupting, so I was very patient and I waited.
Congratulations.
When you
It indeed is a Monday.
when you were discussing this phenomenon that is M-Pesa and other countries talking about it and not us, it's because they have tried to embrace it and they have tried to understand it. And it's very peculiar. It seems to work only in Kenya very well. They've tried it in South Africa. It didn't have the penetration that it did. I mean, here it's basically everybody has M-Pesa. And they were trying to look at factors that allow Kenya. What ingredients does Kenya have that have allowed M-Pesa to take on so much? And one of them, which was very interesting, was the fact that we had this tradition of sending money back home because of rural urban migration, and then you send money home back to your people.
It's called brain drain, my dear. Brain drain and then urban rural migration. Yes.
And then you send money, and you find that wasn't happening in South Africa, or the settlements were different, either geographically or even the communal setups were slightly different. Another thing we found is we couldn't trust our postal systems. So
we didn't have alternatives.
So you couldn't send cash in the post because it would be opened up and what have you. So it was interesting to see the sort of factors that made Kenya so perfect and so ripe for the uptake and the traction, of course, that M-Pesa was.
It's interesting because if you look at other countries, and I know that one of the countries that actually, I don't know if it was this particular study that Njeri is referring to, but on one study that was done in Nigeria, for example, you would think that a country like Nigeria, with its population and in terms of how people use money, it would thrive. But interesting to note that many Nigerians who would be the end users of this product said, absolutely not.
I can see why in Nigeria.
Absolutely not, because I'm not going to put my money on the phone whereby it could be diverted because of the nuances of corruption. Honestly, it sounds really funny, but what had happened? But what had happened in the past with money having disappeared online? Nigerians said, no way. It's a trust issue.
Cobras can eat your money in Nigeria.
Right.
Being funny and being true
I was going to say, I think it would be a matter of trust.
Yes, it is. It specifically
Nigeria.
is. The uptake, I mean, it happened because organizations entered into the financial market and said, we're going to try this. But the uptake was not as much as you would think. And when a survey was actually done thereafter, Nigerians said, no, I will go to the bank and I withdraw my money physically. I will carry it in my bag. I will not send it over the phone. No.
So can we say we're more trusting as a nation?
Well, I would
Kenyans?
say so, and also because of the fact of what happened historically in Nigeria, for example.
We didn't have the experience. You see, Nigerians had that experience.
Yes.
It had actually happened a number of times. So you're saying the same way we're talking about. It's not that we don't trust our postal network. It's because we have had an experience.
We've had an experience, and so you say
the postal network was fine. There was electronic way. Well.
Money,
the equivalent,
money orders.
The only problem is if you sent a certain amount of money to the village post, they would need to wait for people to deposit money on that system before they paid you.
Yep.
That was the main hiccup. If you put in an envelope, tough.
And also it takes time you will receive this green slip that tells you come to the postal.
Yes, yes.
That whole lengthy process.
But remember, we're talking about Nigeria, and we're talking about trust. We are missing out on a key thing here, the technological advancement of the people in Nigeria. People had learned to divert money electronically. Oh yes,
419. This is where it had come from.
A serious skill set, because all the banks tell us, and all this tell us how secure it's supposed to secure, isn't it?
Safe as a bank.
Yeah, the Nigerians proved they were not so secure. That was a good thing.
Even now, we're dealing with situations whereby, the online banking is actually quite huge. There's even been songs that have been done about it when you talk about the alert. So you make a transaction, and when the person gets the alert is now when you say, fine, business can continue. But until that alert is secured,
you don't know where your money is.
You don't know where it is. You don't know what has happened.
See?
You don't know if you can go ahead and do business. So yes, I mean,
so that's fintech as well.
Well,
that is serious fintech.
It is taking place, and new technologies have been embraced. But when you look at something like M-Pesa that thrives in Kenya, something like that over the phone, not yet. It could change in the future, but we'll have to wait and see.
What are the risks and dangers
Eric,
of fintech in Kenya?
Before we even get to the risks, ask yourself this very simple question, all right? When something is this successful, as they say correctly, there must be a very, very good reason why it is successful. And fintech in Kenya is successful because it's not one reason. Not one. There are many, as we've stated, but people who are fairly fed up with the banking system and the system of borrowing money from banks. It was one of the most tedious processes one could undergo. And it didn't matter whether you're a business, it was tedious. When you have an industry that is so insensitive as to, on the one hand, lay down a huge number of people in the thousands, and on the other hand tells you that they're making an 85 billion shilling. You actually ask, do these people understand the economy, the country which they're living in? Should you actually morally be upright and talk about making that amount of money in a country such as this one here? And with the sort of people who are there, and you're still laying out people. People lay people before when they are not making profits. We're not making money, so we have to let people go. These guys do the complete opposite. We're letting you go because we've made 85 billion collectively. So we're letting you go.
Or because fintech has come into play.
Yes,
and everything
yes,
is
so we're
automated.
letting you go. That's that's our response, and that's our contribution to the development of Kenya. We're letting you go. How is that?
We're discussing fintech this morning. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Of course, the conversation also happens on Facebook, where we are live streaming on Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. So what we are actually trying to grapple with here is, what are the dangers that fintech poses to us? And is it because we are, like Jerry is saying, intellectually incapable?
No, I said financially illiterate, or financial literacy is lacking.
Because we are financially illiterate, and what are those dangers?
And by that, I'm not suggesting
Jerry,
anything about somebody's IQ or EQ for that matter. I mean,
I support you
understanding
100%.
the nuances and intricacies of borrowing,
because
and
it is
the rates
intricate.
and so on.
It is intricate.
And also intentionally misleading, so that you don't see the full picture, because that might be a turnoff. So it's intentionally the way it's framed.
Benefits,
they make
benefits.
Absolutely.
And there is no such thing.
And framing is crucial. I remember talking to somebody, and something that says 10% fat free is actually, it could be 90% fat.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
It could be.
So the framing of things is crucial.
I've got Paul from Mombasa who's calling in. Paul, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Welcome to the Situation Room. You're here with all of us.
Thank you so much. I think I love the topic today.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, probably you're discussing about the disadvantage of fintech, but me, I would put it like disadvantage to who?
Right.
Depends on where we are talking in disadvantage, which side. Because these people that are taking these cheap loans are spending them somewhere. That means there is growth in some places. It's a good thing to those places that are growing. Because,
yes.
Well, you
if
could
you're
say that about theft and stealing money. These people that are stealing are going to spend it somewhere, so there's growth. Do you see what I mean?
You know,
Yes,
I don't
but
think
it
that's
is
a
not
strong
only
enough
that-
argument.
theft, Jerry.
No, I'm just saying.
It's only that when we
would
talk
say I've
about
stolen
theft-
money, but I'm going to go
Yeah.
and grow it somewhere.
No.
If
True,
it's harming
but if-
anybody in the process,
This process is not
I think
illegal,
we're able
Jerry.
to.
Theft is.
No, but there's people being harmed in terms of the interest rates and what it does to them, their livelihoods, and their families and indebtedness. It's quite a serious problem. Debt is becoming
Yes.
serious for Kenyan households.
Yes, it is. But
So when-
as our caller is saying, benefits. Please tell us a little bit more about the benefits.
I think if we talk about theft now, we are looking at the vices.
Yep.
But if this other one, it's a matter of choice. Because this thing has been going on for years. People have been borrowing each other money and they don't pay back. So it's not something new.
It's a Kenyan phenomenon, is it?
Yeah. So in fact, it has saved so many Kenyans who lost money thinking that I'll be paid back.
Right.
It's a solution to other people. And another thing is, what is the advantage? I think we should look at it as what are the advantages of having disposable income to so many people. Because what I'm thinking is the only time it becomes a problem, there's been this thing of credit cards. It was a craze at some point, and those who would access it misused it so much. Yeah? So just that it's gone to this person who can shout and people can see, because the others with credit cards do not shout because of their status, their name, and what have you. But it messed people up. Yeah.
So is it about financial literacy, Paul?
It's not even. It just grows, because once you lose it once, twice, you don't go back there. You learn.
You learn your lessons as you go.
Yeah, so it's a good process. Let it go on and let nature take its own course. People just get there.
Let it implode or explode, whichever way it goes. Okay.
Yeah, but you think it's the best thing that ever happened, that everyone can access.
Absolutely.
Asante sana, Paul.
Okay.
Have a good day in Mombasa.
Karibu sana.
We're discussing fintech, and this is how easy it has become to actually access financial services in the country. Very many apps that are lending to people, including those run by commercial banks. High interest rates have been mentioned. Also, high default rates have also been mentioned. What are the benefits and demerits of fintech to the country? This is what you're discussing. 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, getting around 9 o'clock. Somebody's trying to get to Langata Road now that Ngong Road is a total mess, and they're not trying to look for an alternative route. There are quite a number of people who are looking at that as an answer using the bypass. So because of the construction that we have on Ngong Road, people are not able to get into the city centre using that option, and now we are looking for a solution. And it seems that a VIP has just left the house in Karen, and the road needs to be cleared for him, and that's why you have that hold up. Any guesses as to whom that might be? Thika Road, we have some issues still. Waiyaki Way, again, because of construction, we have that problem as well. Kangunda Road is busy, but it's flowing. And apart from that, nothing else out of the ordinary. Give us a call. Send us a message. 0712 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
Kenya's
your day.
biggest conversation. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi, 0719-012-600. We'd love to know, what do you think about the development of fintech in Kenya? Good morning, Lydia.
Morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for the show. I've been listening to it for about a week and a half, and it's refreshing to have you guys.
Thank you
So
very
I wanted
much.
to I wanted to contribute to the topic. I work in the fintech space and agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, that, there has been, I guess, lack of knowledge shared to the public on how fintech works and exploitation in some cases. I'd like to, however, contribute and say that in our case, we're choosing to be an educator and teach financial responsibility, especially if you're in the game for the long run, which is what we're choosing to be. So I don't think it's always negative. I think there is positive value that it brings forth. And that's my contribution.
When you say in our case, who are you?
Sure. So I didn't want it to be a shameless plug.
Go on.
That's not why I'm calling. I'm calling on behalf of Aspira. So I work for a company called Aspira, and we do product financing. So we do not give out cash. We give out a loan towards a product, purchase of a product, or a service. But our vetting process is quite rigorous, so we don't lend to everybody who applies, which I think is part of the problem with some companies out there, and that's irresponsible, right? So we're choosing to say, let's look at what your habit has been in the past, let's look at what you're looking to get, and give you a loan based on those factors.
Is the product then the collateral? Or?
No, but you take the product home with you, so I can't go into the secret sauce of how we work, of course, but there is essentially no collateral. So there's no deposit up front. We just vet the customer. They take the product home the same day and then pay us back over a 3, 6, 9, or 12-month period. We're transparent about what our interest rate is.
And how is that compared to the rest of the market, compared to mainstream banks, high street banks?
Sure. So I think the ease of access, which you guys had alluded to earlier, where you don't have to go into a bank, wait.
No, I meant how is your interest rate? How are your interest rates?
Sure. So we have an interest rate of 4% monthly, a flat interest rate. It's higher than the banks, of course, but lower than other players in the game. And there's a
4% monthly is 48% APR, is that right?
Correct. That is
okay.
correct,
So why do you not put it as 48%?
We do. So we go
because you say 4% monthly sounds very different when it's framed that way. So this is what I was talking about in terms of not necessarily being misleading, but doing it for your benefit where it sounds better in the framing. If you said to somebody 4% monthly, it doesn't sound as drastic as 48% APR. No?
We say both.
Oh,
so I
say.
said 4%. Yeah, I said 4% to you, but we say both.
Okay.
So we have a calculator on our app that also shows the potential customer what their repayment could look like over the term that they select.
All right.
So over 3 months would be 12, 6, 24, and so forth.
All right. Okay. So you're doing it ethically, so to speak.
We're trying to, yes. We're trying to do it as ethically as possible. We're not,
And it's for household goods that people use your services to buy household goods, or?
It's household goods, electronic products. We're venturing into education as well.
School fees?
Education loans. Yes, school fees, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you've really advertised your services, but also very...
I know, but that was
very good insights.
The intention was to say...
Very good insights.
Yeah,
okay.
so Lydia, you were actually calling in to contribute to this, and the conversation that we're having is what are the dangers, what are the risks? You've talked about very high interest rate, that one, because your interest rate is quite high, but you're saying it's not as high as the others in the market. However, even with the kind of interest rate that you have, how much are you educating people about, what kind of loans to take, what's the best way to manage loan, what is it that people need to do to become more financially literate?
Sure. So what we're doing is, one, we're helping people build good credit, right? And educate them on what's good credit versus bad credit.
Yep.
Like I said earlier, we don't give loans to everybody. We're aware that 48% it's not little, of course, and we're not hiding the fact that we're a business. But that said, we're teaching people, if you earn X amount, it's not wise for you to take a loan worth Y amount. However, you can build your credit in this way or the other. So we give those tools on, do you know what your credit report says? Which we found a lot of people don't. Understanding if you do have debt, what is the debt for? Is it serving you, or is it bad debt?
Is it crippling you?
And unpacking what bad debt is. So if you're taking out a loan and just taking cash, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, that's not wise. However, if you're taking it out to start a business and you want to get a cooker because you're a gas cooker, because you're a baker and you've been doing it on a Jiko, then this is what you could get from us. Yeah.
And then what regulatory framework do you operate under?
So the environment is quite unregulated, but we're operating on world standards, right? So we're not looking. We've essentially we're regulated by a CBK, but we've also set for ourselves what are the global standards of regulation for such a space, and operate within that, irrespective of whether it's mandated or not.
Okay. But to what extent does CBK regulate you?
Not extensively at the moment.
Do you think that would be something that needs to be done by CBK? Come in and offer more regulation. In what areas do you think that fintech needs to actually get tighter regulation?
Around interest rates, for example, right? I'm not saying there should be a capping, but they should be regulation on who you lend out to or not. And we're coming to the table and saying we want to be part of that conversation. We're advocating for regulation because we're not in it for a quick win over 5 years. We want to be in the space for a long time. So yes, we're advocating for regulation, and I think primarily educating the potential user of the product on what the terms and conditions of it are. I don't like the asterisk that sits on, terms and conditions apply. So unpacking what that looks like.
Okay. Thank you very much for your contribution this morning, Lydia.
Thank you for having me.
Wish you a good day.
Thank you very much.
Great insights there.
Regulation is something that, fintech players are saying. Some of them are opposed to it. Some of them are okay with it.
Well, she did. I didn't quite hear her, but she said maybe not a rate cap, which is what regulation is all about. It's not about telling you who you can and can't lend to. I think it should be about capping the rates there.
This particular organization that the lady spoke of, if you listen to what she was saying, they don't actually. It's a fintech of sorts, but what they're doing what companies like African retail traders used to do before.
Higher purchase.
That's what they're doing, really. They've used some fancy term for it. They don't give you money. They allow you to actually acquire household goods and things like that. So it's essentially higher purchase of goods, but using technology. You see?
Indeed.
Yes. Now they're new to it, but I guess with technology, we will find at some point things will tend in that direction because it's infinitely more convenient.
Do you think it plays differently on the person who has the debt, on their psychology, the fact that you've bought goods with it, or
you're already using whatever you want to buy?
Do you think? I guess you're not borrowing to drink, so to speak, or. Well, you could be buying a fridge to put your booze in. I don't know. not that you can control what people do with their money. But do you think it plays differently on the borrower's psychology?
It does.
If it's goods.
It does because they don't give you money. But it means, therefore, that this thing that you've wanted to buy, but you couldn't put money together to buy.
You can now.
Whether it's a fridge. Right. And they also give you a limit of what you're eligible to spend, isn't it?
Yes.
So again, and they tell you the specific places that you go to, and I'm certain when you go there, there'll be forms to fill, the usual stuff, more details.
It was an interesting one. They talked about school fees as well, being able to take loans for school fees. That would be interesting to see how that rolls out.
These particular
these particular ones, yes, it's something they're looking to roll out.
We've seen others as well that are doing
but it
the
would
same,
make sense, doesn't it?
Like in the solar space. there are very many fintech companies that are offering solar products and solar solutions on that basis. So we install it for you, and then you'll be paying on, say, a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis.
Right.
And it's really taken root. I've got Solomon who's calling in this morning, always from Mombasa. Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Solomon.
Good. Fine, thank you. Now, about these loan apps, the problem is that there are so many loan apps, and everybody is distinct to an extent that it is not. There is no parallel platform where if you take a loan from this app, you don't take from this one. So what is happening? Somebody has like 5 app loans on their phone, and they're loaning from every app. So they tend to borrow more than they can even pay. So that's where the problem is. You see, like somebody's borrowing from M-Pesa, you borrow from Tala, you borrow this from what? You have like 5 apps, and all of them you've borrowed money. So at the end of the day, you're supposed to pay all that money at the end of the month.
Yes.
So when you have your salary, you cannot pay that money.
Yes.
So what these people need to do is to use, if you're using your line to borrow, they have to have a limit of, you can only do on one app. If you try to borrow on this other app, the same way the bank would do. When you go to borrow money into the bank, they will ask you, do you have a loan in another bank? Or they will ask you for...
Solomon, you're sounding like a regulator.
I have friends who have been doing that.
But
and
you're saying it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing.
It is only a good thing to people, like the way Eric was saying. The people who take loans in the morning do their biashara, and in the afternoon they're able to pay back.
So you're also advocating that we should dictate how people take their loans and what they do with their money.
They can only use one app at a single.
You're dictating one app at a time. I see. Okay.
That is what should happen, because now somebody has like 5 apps. You borrow 20,000 from this app. There's another one that gives you 10,000. Another one gives you 20. Another one gives you 10, and you borrow on all of them at the same time. And there is no way they will say you borrowed from these other ones. So they give you the loans and they say 30 days you pay.
Solomon,
so if you're not able to pay, what do they do?
Would it be safe to say, therefore, that if I had to follow your logic, then every man should just marry one wife?
Oh my gosh.
You don't take wives as a loan.
You don't take wives as a loan, you have them for life.
Oh, yes, you do.
You
don't have to give them back.
You can always try.
Solomon, CT is just yanking your chain. I think you've made your point, Solomon.
And I think his point comes down to your ability to pay back.
Your ability to pay back is what matters.
That is, because a loan is a loan. Whether you're doing higher purchase, whether you're doing this or that, people will come with all these sweet language, and they will tell you the interest is 200 shillings per 1,000 bob. So when they say 1,000 bob, you look at it and say, just 1,000, 200 bob. But when you do it now, like it's 20,000, then you realize you're doing 20% you're paying 20% of the loan. But they will come to you and say, it is, and they're very good when they're giving you the loan. But wait until now you're paying back.
But you see, you seem to be blaming someone's incapacity for having certain financial probity, as Njeri would call it, financial literacy, on these loans, and yet it is the individual who lacks the ability to manage whatever they borrow.
These loans are also taking advantage of people's financial illiteracy. They are taking advantage, they're exploiting that.
Who's responsible for your financial illiteracy?
It's you.
Because I'm saying somebody can be able to, like now, if I wanted to borrow money now, I can use all those apps and I will get money
and
now.
And you'll have a lot of money by the end of the day.
By the end of the day.
And then you'll not be able to pay them.
I will not be able to pay. But what now this maybe Safaricom should do is, because people are using their lines to get also these apps, is that when you borrow from one line and the money comes in, because the money will come into M-Pesa, then it should also, from borrowing more from other apps.
Solomon, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. Today is Monday, right?
Yeah. Monday today, man.
Well, so what happens immediately after this break is we're going to come and look at Njeri's crystal ball. I hope you're ready for that.
Oh, yeah.
2022 politics.
Well, the 2022 politics. Have a good day, Solomon.
Thank you.
17 minutes after 9 o'clock, we've been discussing fintech and how the advancement of technology has actually helped people get easy financial access. But also, it has the downsides to it, and we've discussed that as well. Thank you very much for contributing. When we come back out of this break, the crystal ball, Succession Mondays.
calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with The Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 Malindi. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's go into Succession Monday. Well, today, we don't know what we're going to have coming out of Njeri's crystal ball, but we'd love you to participate in the conversation as always. 0719-012-600. So first, let's hear what's in the crystal ball, and then let's all come in and add into it.
Well, today it's not so much about personalities, but about the environment that will be created, the atmosphere, the narratives that will be running against each other, the rhetoric that we'll be having in 2022. But of course, before that, I'm just going to dip into the papers and look at what people were doing over the weekend. I can see Ruto was in the coast. This was after the president had been there and rallied up his support there and asked them not to engage in 2022 politics.
Not to welcome.
I don't know if in this conversation I am engaging in 2022 politics, but it must be discussed. I am discussing what happened.
But I welcome the discussion. It's important. This caveat that we shouldn't discuss politics in 2022. They're sounding like Solomon. Take only one app.
No, no, we do need to focus on development. You can see how the electioneering period can get tiring and it can affect businesses, foreign direct investments, if it sees a level of instability. So I think that's where the president is coming from when he says, can we focus on development, the big four, as opposed to, you know, the tanga-tangaing that we're seeing from certain factions within Jubilee. But Ruto was at the coast. He's there to revive his political links. Of course, he had Aisha Jumwa, who's been very vocal about the fact that she supports him. We also had Gideon Moi, who was in Kiambu, very interesting thing there. And he was echoing the president's sentiments, saying that we shouldn't be politicking, we should be focusing on development. There's some irony in there, I won't point it out if you missed it, but he was in church echoing those sentiments. But interesting that he's in Central, very interesting. I think people realize the importance of that voting bloc, Central voting bloc, and you can see they're being wooed, so to speak. They're the woman in the room at the moment. The lady in red is the Kikuyu voting bloc. So him going there is maybe a sign that he'll be running, or maybe him saying, yep, I've started my campaigns. Of course, we know Ruto also spends a lot of time in Central. So Central vote definitely being chased. And as a result, you're seeing talk of or rumor of rifts within Central leadership as well. We saw that last week with Ndindi Nyoro and so on, and the incident that took place. But of course, in Kikuyu or Mount Kenya, there's also the fight for succession within, who takes over the mantle after Uhuru. So those are the sort of politics we're seeing playing out. But I want to talk about the narratives that will be playing out in 2022, with everything we've seen, with the rhetoric we're hearing from the different politicians, with the alliances that are forming, including things like the handshake. You can see sides are beginning to merge, and stories are being told, how people are branding themselves. You can see what they're planning for 2022. So, for instance, you can see with Ruto, he's running, a hustler campaign, a rags to riches story, and then alongside that, that's in the backdrop of, we don't want the dynasties, we don't want the rich people. So, a very populist approach. And then, of course, you've got the other side where I would say the guys of the handshake who are talking about unity. We're not doing this on a tribal basis anymore. And they're, of course, that's underpinned by the fact that people are tired of this Kikuyu Kalenjin thing and they're using that. So the two narratives that will be running, or what I see emerging, is a class narrative and a tribe narrative. So one narrative will be saying that the tribe narrative, it won't be a divisive one. It will be, no, we must, be inclusive. We must let other tribes come in, which of course removes Ruto from the equation, if we're to say that. Now he'll be coming in and saying there's no class, there's no tribe. In fact, there's only two tribes in Kenya, the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And those will be the competing narratives. So it's up to us Kenyans to decide what is more important to us, unity or the class struggle.
Or come up with a third one. Issue-based. For example, say food security is our narrative.
Really.
You can see we don't want to discuss development.
Food security is our narrative. Anybody who comes and ensures that we are going to have...
Eric, we are discussing development. It's just the packaging. You see, when people vote for their own, what do you think they're voting for? It's development. What do you think? It's
Now,
just that they feel these individuals...
I like that. Sorry, I'm not interrupting you. I just didn't want to lose my trail of thought.
Carry on, yeah.
It was when you vote in my people. What did you say? Our own.
Yes, our own.
So the definition of our own is going to change. Some people are going to start feeling like they belong to a certain class, the hustlers, the have-nots, as opposed to them belonging to their tribe. That is what I think Ruto is also pushing for as a narrative or as an atmosphere that he's looking to create.
But us guys in the Wanjiku movement, Ndu and I are in it. We are pushing for specific issues, right? So it's not about...
Okay, sorry. Let me give it back to CT. I've taken it away from him.
It's
CT, proceed.
No, you added nicely to it. Eric, no, you added nicely to it. Thank you. Yeah, Eric, continue.
Specific issues. So it's not about, whether you are representing us as the people who are going to think of what you're going to bring. No. We are going to say you are going to ensure food security, or you are going to ensure better security, or you are going to ensure better education, or more teachers in our schools. That as a narrative.
Of course. And why do you think people don't vote on issues?
Because our politicians haven't been leading us to that.
Okay, so is it because they don't know? No. This is leading somewhere. Is it because they don't know, perhaps?
Who?
The people who are not voting on issues, is it because they don't know any better, perhaps?
No, they know.
Yeah, no, this is going somewhere.
I know where you're heading. I am not falling with that.
People know what they want.
People know what they
They are
want.
clear. They are clear. They even feel. They even.
But
clear
this
about
time, the
vehicle.
way the options are going to be presented to them, because there's choice architecture basically in elections, the way the options are going to be presented to them is going to be very different from any other time. For the first time, we're going to have the haves and have-nots.
As a narrative.
Class divide coming
and
in.
how would that then play against the choices?
Well, who are
that
the masses?
Wait,
the masses are have-nots.
The masses are the have-nots.
And even
so
the
you're
haves,
looking at a situation whereby the have-nots are the ones who are going to carry the day in
vote.
terms of who
and
they put.
and
in terms
Ruto
of who
has
they put
packaged
into
himself
power.
as the have-not.
The champion
How
of the
you have
have-nots.
managed to do that? I don't.
He's clever.
With
You
all the
wanna say-
helicopters and so on,
You want to
how
say
you
the
have managed.
have-nots.
But of course, then he's also aspirational. There's the rags to riches story. I was selling chickens and look where I am now. So even the people who have and are still aspiring, he'll also capture that demographic. So he's done very well in that sense. But
So
of
that's
course,
a very well crystallized discussion.
But I
what's
want to
the other
understand,
discussion?
yeah.
What's the other side's discussion?
the other side
That
is
we are not
the other
dynasty.
side. No. The other side is we can't have two tribes running for president since independence, where it's a Kikuyu Kalenjin alternating. We can't have that. And in them saying that completely removes Ruto out of the race. Do you see what I mean? That negates Ruto from the ballot box. If people buy into that narrative, if people feel yes. Now the question is, are people going to buy into those sentiments of Kenya cannot be ruled by two tribes?
So
or are they going to
40
realize actually Kenya cannot be
42
ruled...
versus 2.
Or Kenya cannot be ruled by one tribe, which is the haves, which is what Ruto is selling. Those are the competing narratives. So it's all about packaging, framing. They'll need a good political communications person, Jerry Thorne, that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
To package it this way and bringing the tribalism back into play. It happened.
No, I wouldn't bring tribalism
It
back
happened
into
in
play.
2007, 41 versus 1. Now we're actually talking about 42 versus 2.
But you're
We
not
are going
understanding
back
that the
there.
side that is running on the tribe card,
44,
it's the inverse. It's not a negative it's not a negative rhetoric that
It
they're
is a
bringing
negative
up.
They're saying
What
it's
they're saying
enough.
is
They're saying it's
inclusivity.
enough.
We need to
We need
include
to have
more
more
people.
tribes.
We need to have more tribes. We cannot have Kikuyus and Kalenjins only. So it's almost the inverse of what was happening in
what
2007.
what narrative will they be fighting against or speaking against?
They
It
will be
against
speaking-
those two tribes.
No. They
It'll
will
be
be
42
speaking. They will be
versus
speaking.
2.
No, they will be speaking against
The two.
the class. Okay, this needs to be
Deconstructed
It is.
properly.
It's very complex. There's a lot of intricacies and nuances, so it's very complex. But can you see what I'm alluding to? The fact that there will be two narratives, one of which is going to rely on the tribe card, but in a positive way by saying we need inclusivity. It's not trying to cast anybody out. The other will be relying on class. Why are we going to have these dynasties, these rich people running the place? So with the inclusivity one, and the idea that we can't
Kenya
have a
for
Kikuyu
all.
Kalenjin, Kikuyu Kenya
Don't
for
even-
all.
don't even
it
mention
casts,
Kikuyu Kalenjin.
it-
Just say Kenya for
Kenya
all.
for all. It casts Ruto out, but implicitly so. It's not expressly so. Do you see what I mean? They're not saying we don't want a Kalenjin,
Or it
but
basically
in
says you
saying
can have a Kalenjin if the deputy is not a Kikuyu.
perhaps.
It can work the same way,
You know,
right?
I don't know why we keep saying you cannot talk politics in this country and not talk tribe.
Because that is how it has been
I
historically.
think that's what Ruto is going to try and do, because if
going
he
to
brings
change
up
that.
tribe,
Yes, but then he would need
Ruto
to
cannot
change his
play
tribe.
the tribe card.
He would then need
cannot.
to change his
although,
tribe.
Although, of course, he's playing politics with tribe. He's making
Yes.
sure he gets he's wooing the Western vote in Luyaland. A lot of appointments
You
there.
see, Jerry,
He's
there's-
been in
there's-
Central through and through. And apparently, there was a secret poll. He's making inroads. There was a secret poll, and he's got 36% support there. Apparently,
In Central?
Apparently, being the operative word here.
Good for him.
Yeah.
So
Good
now,
for him.
on Succession Monday today, we are looking at what's going to happen, the kind of narratives that are going to be emerging in 2022. So Njeri is saying there's going to be two. One of them is class. The other one is Kenya for all. I'm trying to help you. Don't say Kikuyu, not Kalenjin.
No, it's going to be
tribe.
It's going to be tribally based, but with a slight twist to
So
it,
it's going
in
to
that
be-
it's not.
That slight
it's not
positive
negative.
twist.
It's
going to be
positive.
it's
yeah.
going to be positive when you talk about tribe in 2022. And then there are those who would wish, those of us who are in Utopia, who want issues. Issues to be
addressed.
discussed, to be the ones that come in and tell me that you're going to address the issue of food or healthcare or others, and we discuss that as your candidate. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719 012 600. This conversation cannot happen without your input. 0719 012 600. That's what we're discussing. Good morning. It's 9:30.
Spice FM Classifieds. Moi Educational Center, Nairobi, seeks to draw the attention of the public and all residents of South Sea Mahi Mahi Road on the proposed construction of the ultra-modern secondary school. In compliance with NEMA guidelines, the school invites all members of the public to register any reservations or comments they have in connection to the proposed construction. Spice FM Classifieds.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles. Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
We still have a situation on Thika Road, and the same applies to Wayaki Way heading towards the Westlands roundabout and also outbound heading towards the CBD. Those are going to give us some issues throughout some part of the morning. We also have some issue coming out of Langata Road because of the hold up by police there. But hopefully, as soon as that situation gets cleared up, traffic will then in turn dissipate. All right, Jogo Road is clear heading into the CBD now after the morning traffic, and now it is clear. So if you didn't leave, now it's time to do so. Mombasa Road also has the same narrative where we have the issues that we saw earlier in the morning having been cleared up. So now traffic in most cases has disappeared. Where it is, we know that in a few minutes or so, we will not have that situation. It's a Monday morning, but things have cleared up. See anything different, do give us a call and we'll get you moving.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing Succession Mondays. Succession Mondays. 2022 messaging. Is it going to be about class? Is it going to be about tribal inclusivity? I've got the man from Matu.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning,
good
Yagon.
morning,
How are
Yagon.
you?
Yeah, I'm very fine. Yes, I want to talk about the narrative
Yes.
about 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will not run away from the rich versus poor class or the dynasty versus hustler,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the tribe and the influence of a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three main things which I will say it will play a key role when it comes to 2022.
So rich versus poor.
Rich versus poor,
Mm-hmm.
tribe,
Personalities.
and the personality.
Okay. With
Without all those,
Mm-hmm.
it will be hard for a candidate who cannot have all the three traits when approaching the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which one do you think weighs most heavily in the hearts and minds of Kenyans at the moment as things stand? Is it rich versus poor or tribe? Which is somebody associating with more? The class divide or the tribal divide?
I think mostly it's the tribal divide.
At the moment, tribe is still winning. Well, when I say winning, for lack of a better phrase.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's winning.
Mhm.
And in tribal,
Because
Do you think we can get people to think from a class-based perspective where they say, actually, we're not putting any more rich people in anymore, irregardless of their tribe?
And now it will be hard,
Mm.
because I will take, for example, now my tribe.
Mm-hmm.
We have those who are supporting maybe another better candidate than those we have tested in Jubilee Bow.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get that semi-illiterate person at the grassroots level, who doesn't,
We shouldn't have a vote.
no, I'm saying, a person who is not concerning about the economy just because he fits well and sleeps well, his children can afford a normal day school.
Mm-hmm.
So a person will tell you, let us give this one, because at least he has nothing. I will bring the issue of now Gideon and Ruto.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get somebody and then, you see this Jubilee government, they have been all this corruption, what change are we expecting? Here is in the second command, blah, blah. And they will tell you no. We have been Africa. We have the Jaramogi dynasty, Kenyatta dynasty, and Moi dynasty.
So those would be
Let
the
us-
competing narratives.
Let us give this one, this humble guy. Also, it's our son. So we have two sons, but the other son will have a benefit of doubt because he's from a poor background.
He's a hustler.
I'm very interested
Yeah,
to
he's a
know.
hustler.
Yeah, I'm very interested to know where issues play out in all of this, where people
Yes.
are looking for better infrastructure in the country, where people are looking for better education, better health services, making
Food.
sure that the country is running food security. I mean, does this play a role in the choice that people are going to be making come 2022?
No, it will. This one may not play a
It
big
doesn't
impact.
matter. It's just the individual.
Because when we
Let
have
the country
when-
go to
when-
the
when-
dogs
when-
so long as the individual is in place.
when we have main pressing issues to a Kenyan is healthy and agriculture. A candidate like Ruto will tell you, no, we gave you a governor enough money for these things. And they will use a performing governor to pin down
demonstrate.
the other one. Yeah, demonstrate that.
So
this
can
because we have devolved some functions, the government, those who are running for top seat will have a better scapegoat. Yeah, because you cannot force them about now the revenue allocation. They will tell you that is your MPs who did that. It's not me. Yeah, it's not us.
When it comes to the tribe side, is it? Are you seeing it from that lens of anybody else but a Kikuyu and a Kalenjin?
We have three tribes. This is Luo, Kalenjin, and Kikuyu. Now, if you see this part, those who are pushing that we don't want Kikuyu, Kalenjin. For example, I'll use Mount Kenya. These are people who are supporting PPI. And they are saying that because when we have PPI and we will have a presidential from another tribe, then them shall hide in the low position, maybe prime minister. Number two.
Yeah.
Number two. If you see them all saying that we don't want a Kalenjin or Kikuyu, or let me use the Kieleweke team.
Yeah.
The problem with them is not Kalenjin. The problem with them is Ruto.
It's not the tribe.
It is not the tribe because you will find them that we don't want Kikuyu. Kalenjin
Why do you think they
because
have a
are-
problem with Ruto?
Now they have a problem with Ruto because of the leadership traits. They see him as a dictator, and he experimented that when he was in charge of Jubilee primaries in central Kenya, whereby he made sure that his appointment. So
Keep going. I'm liking this. So he's a dictator, and even with
Yes,
the
so
nominations, he's been
yeah,
known to tamper.
during it was experimented because those guys who won the Jubilee nomination are they are they are Ruto proponents. Now those who are against are those who lost.
Okay.
So when they are bringing this narrative is because in Central there is no clear candidate for top leadership when it comes to 2022.
Okay.
Okay.
Now in the other side,
That's the
with
Tangatanga side.
the Dangadanga side now is Ruto. I cannot speak about that.
Why?
Now this building pretty sensitive of the side of Odinga.
Yeah.
The same problem is still Ruto. The problem is Ruto. And even us, the Tangatanga team, we are wishing that this PBI comes so soon, so that we might plan ourselves very well, so that we cannot be caught off guard. Now these guys are using delaying tactics, so that by the time we are waking up, the realignments of the drive is off.
And who do you think your guy Ruto will be running with? Mudavadi, he's tried. Who do you think he'll be wooing?
As what? As a
As his
deputy
running
or
mate,
what?
yeah.
His running mate.
Because of the rich fort in Mount Kenya, I think Ruto will have his deputy from
Meru.
Mount Kenya.
Akikuyu.
And if we will have this PBI whereby we will have the prime minister, and then we will have another third principal from Western.
All right. But you guys are
These
going to
are
vote
the-
against the BBI. I'm
You
sure.
don't think the Luos will be up in arms if it's
No, yes, we might vote against the BBI, but this is the government agenda.
So it will win.
Now, most if Uhuru will support, then the BBI agenda will pass. The same way we opposed in 2010. And later, the question passed, and we were the beneficiaries.
Okay. Thank you
Now
very much,
this
Yegon.
one- Thank you.
Thank you, Yegon. Speak to you tomorrow, hopefully.
Well, he's deconstructed it. Basically, he's saying when it comes to tribe, it's not tribe, it's personality.
You know,
he's broken it down. It's
when you talk development, again, this is now Njeri domain. It's a Western construct. You seem to think that when you talk policy, you're not talking issues. You are. In this country, all our developmental issues are embodied in the individual. If we vote so and so, our thinking, they will bring this. It's not that we don't understand healthcare. It's not that we don't understand it. It's understood. But individuals
They're
have to
vested
bring.
in that
Yes,
individual.
and that
You
is
don't-
the politics that Ruto is still doing. You tell me, which of our politicians have you actually seen embodying this issue and embodying not in themselves but embodying the concept issues and deconstructing it from the individual? None of them do that.
No, they don't.
They all present themselves as the people who will bring about development.
But also Kenyans, they like the underdog, of which Ruto is also playing to that narrative and dancing to that tune by constantly victimizing himself. If we talk about lifestyle audit, it must be about him. If you talk about corruption, he ties himself to it. So he's played to that card very well. But one thing with Kenyans that I'll tell you is they do like a likable character.
They do.
They like somebody who resonates with their hearts and minds, not necessarily from an economic perspective,
No,
not necessarily
no.
from a tribal
Something
perspective.
that they identify with,
Somebody
really.
they like.
Yes.
It's that basic. And I think Ruto is not doing very well when it comes to creating the likability factor. Whoever is running the narrative that he's a dictator, I'm not saying he is, he's not, I don't know, but it seems to be trumping everything that he's doing, because even a people's person, whether it's Robin Hood or what have you,
They
is a
like
very
him.
likable character.
Solomon has been listening. We told Solomon, just listen.
Mm.
So Solomon, you've heard.
Yes.
Now.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Right, this one is very interesting. When you look at all these things and whatever is going on. But on me personally, my view and what I've had and what I see, I don't think we will even go on tribal or anything. What will happen is people will go on dynasty. And I will give you an example, and then you can also assess. When these guys put in the prime minister position, so it was being said that Raila will run like a president. They will give Gideon the deputy president, and then Uhuru Kenyatta will be given prime minister. So tell me, if anybody is trying to go against that kind of team, where will they get the vote?
Do you not think maybe that what you've just said to me could be a lie to make sure that to build up and amplify that dynasty rule and create anti-dynasty sentiments, if you put it like that? You don't
let me
think
tell
what
you
you've just said to me has been packaged to you for your consumption but is a lie?
And the reason why that would happen is because if you look at ever since the handshake came in, people have been in peace. There's nothing like Kenyans want, like just to be in peace. Nobody wants to have any issues with anyone. And if they look at like the handshake and where it's going, and if they see this is where we will not have people in arms and people fighting, that's what they will do.
Okay, so what we're looking at then, essentially, you're saying basically that people would rather not fight or not
would
disagree over something and say, okay, let's come together on this, so long as we maintain a situation of peace and equilibrium and everybody's smiling and everybody's happy.
And that is why they've been looking for an all-inclusive government. They will have prime ministers. They will give those positions to other tribes. They will have all this.
And so Kenyans are likely to vote along those lines, because what that does essentially is that it keeps everybody happy and that we can be in a position of peace.
Whether or not we can afford the cost of living, that is going. It's not going to be a factor.
The previous government will be having that have been coming in. We've been having issues day in, day out. ever since the handshake that came in, people have been in peace, and people now are able to have confidence in them and also do some development. So we might put in somebody because they have very good intention and good issues, but there will be somebody who is on the opposition side who will see the only way I can do this is to fight this person.
Right.
We've always had candidates who come in and they say this is what we are going to do in the next 5 years. But the fact that there's somebody opposing them and there's somebody fighting them, they're not even able to do. All these governments that have been coming in, they've always had a good heart and wanting to develop and have things done in the country.
What did you say, Solomon? Repeat that statement again. That's spent about people in government want to do. Please, yes.
Every government that comes into
that has come in so far, yes.
Yes, when they begin, they have their manifesto, they have good intentions. But every time they want to do something, there will be somebody opposing.
Really?
If the handshake had not come, even this new money that we are seeing coming in would not be there right now. Because somebody would be opposing.
Then how is it that with the opposition, we've had roads being built, they're just going on, rural electrification taking place, and the handshake was not in place?
They were happening, but not to the extent that they are supposed to.
Not this way.
Right now, not at this rate. So when we have an all-inclusive government coming in, so everybody will know. And the reason why I am saying, because that is something that we were discussing somewhere, and that is what was coming up. And the reason why they would even throw Gideon is because let me tell you, and this is fair enough. Like everybody in this country, not everybody. Let me not put everybody.
I was waiting for you to tell us how this everybody is going to work out. But anyway, go on. Yes.
Most of these people, when Ruto is a good candidate, but people are afraid of him. And why are they afraid of him? We need to know why. Because somebody will say he doesn't have a very good track record. Some people will say he's a dictator. Some people will say he has scandals.
Solomon, let me present something that you and your clearly clear-thinking friends ought to consider. You know, it's this. You know, political narratives change all the time.
Yes.
And people change them to suit what they consider to be the thing that will propel their interests forward. And the thinking I'm putting forward is this: people have extolled the virtues of the opposition because they feel it's the opposition that forces the government to do things that ordinarily they wouldn't do.
Or opposition just derails the government.
No, it is not.
It's a bit difficult to derail a government, really, even if you think about it, because all the opposition does is talk.
Okay. The only active opposition we've ever had is Raila as an opposition. He's the only active person we've ever had. When Kibaki was opposition, we would not see these things happening.
So you're saying that when President Uhuru was a leader of the opposition, nothing happened?
He was quiet.
Be careful, Solomon. Be careful, because CT is now putting words in your mouth.
Solomon, can I ask you a question? So,
Yes.
do you think all the traversing that the DP is doing around the country, selling himself, you think it's an exercise in futility?
The deputy president is really going around and exercising politics. But at the end of the day, right now he's looking. He's trying to build. He's trying to build a ground. Okay.
Do you think it's working?
Don't be nice. Just say what you think.
It is working for him.
Working for him how? Is it taking him closer to the House of the Hill for 2022?
But how will that go if we put in a prime minister? It will be done. You know, you can be very active on trying to get something, but at the end of the day, that thing is not there.
You're out-tweeted.
Yes, you can be really, it's like somebody who's training for sports. You train and then you're told, hey, ndege zimeja, you cannot go.
Solomon, thank you very much.
You're fit, but you cannot go.
Thank you very much, Solomon, for your contribution this morning.
Okay.
Have a good one in Mombasa.
Same to you.
Yep.
Eric, can I say something?
Say it.
You know, I want to talk about perceptions here. Okay, a lot of what happens in politics has to do with perceptions. Who you're perceived to be, not who you are, who you're perceived to be. And the callers in have actually talked about perception, not knowing that they're talking about perception. If you look at the impact that the governor of Kirinyaga was talking about. I'm calling Kirimpa because that's what it was. When he says, we have an individual in this country called Raila Amolo Odinga who controls this X%, half the percentage. Yes. Now, it's perception. Why I'm saying it's perception, he could control less, he could even control more. But when he says something, the reaction from statements that he makes, he's made so many, and the impact that has followed those statements have been clear. So he is not someone whose perspectives you want to trifle with. But why? Because over time, he has engraved an image of him being a certain type of person in the minds of people. It's taken a very long time. Now, what the deputy president is trying to do is something similar. And I'm trying to say it doesn't take one electoral cycle to achieve it.
Right. And also, of course, with Raila, he had a bit of a head start with his dad having been.
He had a huge
in
head
the
start.
community.
He had a huge head start.
Let's pick a call from Eldoret. Levi, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room, Levi.
Yeah, thanks. I really like what this gentleman has just said, that, it doesn't take one election cycle to achieve it. Now, personally, I'm not a DP fan, to be very honest.
Along with
But
many
I
other
work-
people, they share that sentiment.
Yeah, but where I sit and I look at it, I do see the smartness behind his moves. They say a good salesman does three things. First, he tells you what he's going to sell you, then he tells you, and then he tells you what he's just sold you. And it seems that is what he's repetitively telling people. What we are told repetitively, we begin to believe. Just think about it. This hustler narrative, he didn't carry it not too long ago. He started calling himself hustler. Before that, he was, just a guy from Eldoret North constituency, when he was MP. But he has carried it so well that people actually believe that he sold chicken until he became a billionaire.
I know.
If you go to the villages, you will find that story. Not just in Eldoret, you'll find it in Central. You'll find it. It's surprising when you talk to the Mashinani guys who have, are only listening to that one thing, how much they believe that they themselves are just like him.
They can identify.
So they can identify. But it's a story that is working on stilts.
Fabricated. Yeah.
My problem with the guys who want to stop him is that they don't keep on hacking at those stilts, well enough. I mean, surely, if you tell us that you want to stop dynasties, how do you stop a dynasty? By creating one yourself. And you can see it even from his moves. You can see some of the things that are happening even to some of his family members. Some of them, very early age, you see somebody is becoming, deputy ambassador somewhere. That tells you what? The guy is creating a dynasty. Back here in Eldoret, there is talk that one of his sons is going to be the next MP. You're not stopping one. You are simply creating another one.
You're changing the dynasty.
You're changing the dynasty.
Creating yet another one.
Yes. You're creating your own, and then it's sort of like he has had a free hand now, because one of the questions some of us who consider ourselves a little more elitist ask ourselves, what is it? Why is it that we are talking about an election in 2019?
Right.
And we have 2020 and 2021, and and all, and and for God's sake, we're in September. If you came in to Kenya right now, you would think the election is 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
But we are talking about it because somebody somewhere has discovered the power of the subliminal mind, where you keep on telling us something, you keep on telling us something, you keep on telling until it is. While the rest of the guys are watching him doing it and just saying, we're anafanya siasa. Afanyi tu siasa. He's playing a seriously dangerous psychological game.
He's winning in it.
But you
And
agree
if
with
they let him
CT?
continue, he will beat them, honestly.
No, but you said earlier in your call, you said you agree with CT that it would take more than one electoral cycle for him to.
I do agree to take one more than election cycle, but think about it. This one is kind of unique. We have never had a moment where somebody has started soon after an election. This particular soon. This guy knows the time is not enough, so start immediately.
But
usually we would have been hearing.
But consider this. It's not just a narrative in open space. He's fighting other narratives that have existed. And for his narrative to take root, it means he's going to occupy the space of that other narrative in people's minds. And these are narratives that have been there for a long time. The narrative.
Think about it, you guys. Come on now. It won't go for a long time. In the 80s and the 90s, all we had was the radio. Now we have WhatsApp. We have social media, blah blah. People are always sending all those videos that he's doing. What the 80s and the 90s didn't have, he has a lot more because of
Yes, he
technology.
does. In the last election, the technology you're speaking of was in place. How did it change our voting patterns, really? Just this last election, not very long ago, how did it change it? In 2013, we had these plans. How did it actually change? We still voted along tribal lines. How did it change our thinking? Tell me.
Yeah, but you see, are you not? Does it concern you that even the people who are that we consider very tribal, that we would normally think are in the rural areas, are also in town? These ones in town, it only made us more. How do I put it? More grounded in our tribal lines. Those of us that have access to technology, we would see it more. And even if we are in Nairobi, you will find a guy in Nairobi or in Eldoret town, like right here. You think he's very, he has school, he's gone to school with different tribes, he has got friends from everywhere. But then he goes to the ballot box, and what does he do?
Votes along tribal lines.
He votes for his guy. Why does he vote for his guy? Because it's being entrenched in. We're not only just using the past, we're now using technology to do it, to entrench the tribal story.
So you
The
think
same
he
way we
could
are doing right
actually, with his strategy of this blitz and the repetitiveness and just, as you say, entrenching himself in our minds, you think he could actually win whole voting blocks, so the whole Kikuyu, all of Central would vote for him as a result? You don't think Kikuyu would be divided?
Or the whole of Lualand would vote him, or the
Rift
whole of
Valley is
Cumberland
also.
would vote for him.
The thing is, if you look at his numbers, even if he's making inroads in Central, it's going to be a divided vote. Let's say he gets 30% of it. He doesn't even have his own backyard. That is already divided. And then on the other side, you would have the rest of the Central vote, you'd have the rest of the Kalenjin vote, and you'd have the Luo vote. Just the numbers themselves wouldn't let him get to number 10.
I think what concerns me.
Our time is up.
State House.
Our time is up. Levi.
Yeah, just real quick. What concerns me is the people who are seeing it the way I am seeing it are in town only. The rural guys
see
not
something
yet.
totally
See it differently.
And they have the numbers.
Asante sana. Have a good one in Eldoret.
Thank you,
You too.
Levi. Thanks for
Thank
that.
you, Levi. Cheers.
Your conclusion on today is not actually a crystal ball. Today, it's
No. It's a crystal ball on the narratives that will emerge. So not on the people themselves. On the people have decided that yes, DP will be number 2, will be on the ballot box, of course, and there'll be the other side. And I was giving the two running competing narratives. One will be a class one, i.e. rich versus poor, and I am poor, have gotten rich, come on my side, leave these dynasties alone, leave these rich people alone. And the other will be, we can't have another Kikuyu Kalenjin president. We've had that since independence. We need inclusivity. That will be the other narrative. So which will win?
When you have people whose political narrative has been tribal, if you change that narrative too much, it becomes a little difficult to understand. The narrative that we ought to give other people a chance, which is essentially tribal, is bound to carry the day.
Do.
Yeah, I think those are how we are looking at all of this playing out. However, again, we should look at now the individual who would carry the day in terms of development. Yes, we are made to understand that the characters who are coming forth already have these issues entrenched in the different manifesto that they may bring out, but that is where our focus actually should be.
Ni nani atakaye komboa Kenya? Totally likes that song so much. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. We've been with you since 6 o'clock to now 10 o'clock. My name is Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, and Ndu Oko will be joining you again tomorrow morning, 6 to 10 o'clock. Between now and 7 o'clock, well, no, between now and actually 3 o'clock, some uninterrupted music. And then from 3 o'clock, we'll have a new show. Just tune in. You'll listen to Monique. She'll be on air from 3 o'clock today. And then at 7, we'll have the usual trio. The adults in the room, Eric, Emmanuel, and Barbara.